High over the Pocono Mountains lies a three-sided outlier, a shift from the typical oval where the series takes its first trip to Pennsylvania, with anyone still able to grab their first checkered flag amongst a slew of different winners so far. Live from the virtual Pocono Raceway, we welcome you to round number 7 in the 4th season of the 2022 4-Wide Racing Cup Series as we bring you our coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. Always ready to bring in a very different looking track to the schedule, returning favorite, but one that does bring a challenge to a lot of drivers every single time they come here. And here in the broadcast booth alongside Francisco Bacallao, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, last week I think we made a very good point in terms of the fact that Michigan, a lot of drivers said, hey, there are some races, there are some tracks where I can take notes from, I can gather my information. This track, it's not so easy to take information from any other venue and put it here, because this track is just so unique, so different. And after what's been a couple of seasons of visiting this track at least once a campaign, it is always the most random track, it is always the most interesting one, and tonight should be no different.
Happy to be here, Kenneth, on top of the Triangular Raceway, and you mentioned it right there. The corners are different, so it's tough to really prepare for this racetrack and what notes to bring. But one thing you can kind of figure out is that turn 1 is sort of based like the turn over at Trenton with the 14 degrees of banking. Turn 2, you kind of can pick some notes up from Indianapolis. It's a 90-degree corner with 9 degrees. And then turn 3, right there on the screen, it's a long sweeping corner, kind of like Milwaukee Raceway. So, you know, it's if you've raced at those places, then perhaps maybe you can carry a couple of things, but definitely not the speeds we see except for turn 2, which is why probably that's the corner that will maximize or really show significance of your lap time and how well you're able to perform. Turn 2, the tunnel turn, you can lose or gain a lot of time in that corner, probably more than any other corner. It's just a very momentum based corner, and whoever is able to nail turn 2, I think, is going to be very strong here today.
And you look at the track overhead as we look at our track map with, of course, our images provided to us by Google Earth. And like you said, Francisco, the 3 different ends of this racetrack based off of 3 different tracks that occupy, of course, the rest of the United States: Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Trenton. All 3 of them very different in their own right. And you can tell just how big this track is and how different it is from every other venue we usually visit. And I remember watching an ad for Pocono a couple of years back for the NASCAR Cup Series, and Dale Jr., one of the drivers, had said that you can have a good turn 1, turn 2, you mess up turn 3, or you can have a bad corner anywhere. You could get a good turn 1 and 2, and then have a bad 3, or have a bad 3 and good turns 1 and 2. It is just a different track, very different from the tracks that we usually visit on the circuit. And as this one is categorized as the Indy of the East when it was built back in 1971, hosting IndyCar and USAC races, it is a very historic racetrack, a very gorgeous one here in the northeast of the United States. We got some overcasts over the track, so we'll talk about that later on when we get into actual race conditions. But Francisco, there is something to behold about this schedule and the winners we've seen so far this season. As you take a look at your Season 4 schedule, see where we've been, where we are right now, where we're going in the future. Daytona, Austin Reedy, of course, kicked it off for Murray Reedy Motorsports. Then we saw Lawson Peel pick up what will be his first of 3 this season at Phoenix, and Mark Harris took the last lap pass to win at Auto Club. AJ Green took the victory at Richmond, and then it's been all Lawson Peel from Las Vegas to today. He won Las Vegas, then in Michigan, now going to be looking for his 3rd straight. Francisco, with this season, with the categorical tracks we see on the schedule, with the drivers we've seen get to victory lane, I think this championship is really more open than anything I think we've ever seen before.
You're right about that. It's been an interesting first 6 races of the season. We had a couple different winners there, and also we saw Lawson Peel able to pull out a couple of wins, able to have half on the season to this point, trying to go for 3 in a row for that matter, to see if he can get it done. But if you look at the next portion of the schedule, we have Pocono here today, a road course in Road America next week. Then it'll be Loudon. We'll be going to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the first time in 2 seasons or so. So it's going to be interesting to see how these next-gen cars race there at New Hampshire. Then we're going to be going to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, followed by Coda, another road course, and then ending this leg of the schedule of the 3 legs in the regular season over at the Bristol Motor Speedway. So I think this is probably the most interesting portion of the schedule, Kenneth, because there's so much diversity in the racetrack sizes, their shapes, and how you actually race them. I think this portion of the schedule, depending on who can run well and who can really perform good, your champion is probably going to be one of the drivers who perform the best at this portion of the schedule.
And of course, you mentioned it there, the different types of tracks we see all in a group together, which we usually never see in the 4Wide Racing Cup Series schedule. Usually we see sort of some of the same tracks and usually the same order, but this time they decided to crank things up and change the dynamic of it all. It means it's going to be a lot of fun to see how these drivers handle it, and of course how the playoffs work going all the way to Texas Motor Speedway later this year. Well, we've got this race to focus about from Long Pond here in Pennsylvania, and it is our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from the Northeast and the Indy of the East as well. Brian M. Smith, he's been close to winning a couple of races this season, but he'll line up on the pole with a 54.177, the fastest of the field in qualifying, but he'll have a strong beef Chevrolet Camaro to his outside, defending champion AJ Green on the outside of row 1.
Second row with the 38 of Lance Hill, teammate of AJ Green. He's going to be in the third position with the 54.28, followed by Joe Sanchez, who was showing some strong pace in practice. We'll see if Joe Sanchez can come up here and get another win in the 4Wide Racing Cup Series.
Set the fastest time in qualifying before getting beat by the likes of Smith, Green, and Hill. He'll start fourth. Scott Healy, a defending champion previously in season number 2. He'll be lining up the inside of row number 3, starting the inside of the top 5. Eric Schaefer, we've seen him close to victories countless of times. He's been pretty good with this next-gen car. He's just yet to find himself in victory lane. He's got a good starting spot on the outside of that third row.
Jesse Priest with a great qualifying effort is going to be inside the top 10 in the 7th position alongside Craig Lonslugger, who likes the slow downforce package. We'll see what he's able to do tonight.
Inside row number 5, you'll find the 16 at Matt Roberts. Very good qualifying effort for him. He'll start in 9. Tyler Warner, Daytona winner from a couple of seasons back. He'll line up the outside row and into the top 10.
Kyle Benson, two straight seasons of being in the championship 5. We'll see what he's able to do from 11th. He's been pretty good at this racetrack. Maybe we'll be able to win, but he's going to have to contend at some point in this race with the guy next to him. That's 12 of Lawson Peel, looking for 3 straight wins on the season.
Lawson Peel hot on his heels right now. Going to be looking for that third straight. Adam Alishire had a struggle run over Michigan 1 week ago. He's going to be looking to redeem himself from 13th. And Jacob Smith, we've seen him before in this series do well. We saw him do well at Indianapolis not too long ago, and this track's sort of like Indianapolis. We'll see what he can do from 14th.
Michael Newbrough in the 6th will be in the 15th position with Tony Kivett, and alongside him in the 76th and 16th.
Now look at everybody through the field. Curtis Kelly, Siju Meunier, all the drivers who took time in qualifying. We've got a full 32 car field here tonight from the virtual Pocono Raceway. You see some big names there, Tyler Murray being one of them. Of course, the drivers up in front of him, Austin Reedy, Daniel Michel, Austin Bloom, starting from very deep in this field. We've got a full 16 rows here. Cody Kinsey looks like he's going to be the final driver here in this field. It is a very overcasty day in sim at Pocono. You see the temperature there, 88 degrees on the track temp. Not the hottest we've seen here from this northeast section of the United States. 73 degrees in the air, no humidity. Winds fairly small to the southwest, about 4 to 5 miles per hour. But that overcast is going to really matter in terms of tires and in terms of how these drivers handle their race cars over the course of what's going to be a 90-lap race here from the track that is known as the Tricky Triangle. Pace car makes its way to the exit of what is turn 3. Brian Smith, AJ Green go up the gears, and we're racing from the Pocono Raceway. Round 7 is underway.
You're seeing it right there, Kenneth. Immediately, guys are moving around the racetrack trying to use draft and either block a line to prevent movement. We have long straightaways here at Pocono. You can use them to your advantage and really pull out and maybe make some sort of move. You see right there, you're able to have a move into the second place position. Goes to that 38 of Lance Hill. Now he's going to challenge for the lead going into turn 3.
Here comes Lance Hill. We saw him get to the ARCA win last season, but was not able to replicate it on the Cup side. He's on the inside Your pole sitter, no help there on the main straightaway as they come to complete lap number 1. Brian Smith already goes to the very inside to block the Ford Mustang, trying to give a charge, and opens the door up for AJ Green and maybe take position away. Field dives back into turn 1, and we're side by side for the lead as Green bobbles over the bumps.
And you saw that right there. He went over the bump. The car stepped out. But with the new updates to iRacing made to these race cars, you could kind of catch that a little bit easier. It's not going to be as problematic as it was in weeks past, which should help with some maybe more green flag action. But there you see AJ Green's going to move to the inside. He's going to have help from that car behind him. He's going to try and stay side by side with Smith. But that bottom right there, when you're on the inside of somebody in the tunnel turn, Kenneth, that's going to be very tough to hold that as we see this race go.
AJ Green just tried to hold that very inside lane, and now he's going to get absolutely freight train on the very top. And one thing about these next-gen cars, we've already talked about it ad nauseum here in this Season 4 campaign, that the draft is so strong when you get a run like that, especially out of the corner, going to a long straightaway, which is very prominent. You've got 3 of them here at this Pocono Raceway, and you're going to have a tough time trying to defeat all the guys that really stack up on a certain lane, all nose to tail. This time, AJ Green going to fall back to the entrance of the top 5. We'll see if he falls back any further, as he's got Eric Schaefer to the outside of him. He'll fall back to 6. Jesse Pree is going to be the next one to attack, but that brings in the 55 of Joe Sanchez. We've seen Francisco Joe Sanchez have a lot of speed, especially last season where he was in contention for wins week in, week out. Of course, in the ARCA Series, was able to run for wins as well, run for the championship overall at the end of the season. Right now, looking very strong for the first 3 laps as Brian Smith had a rare mistake there out of the tunnel turn and smacked the outside wall.
Got into it a little bit, but with these cars, it's a little bit more resistant, so it shouldn't do him as bad as in previous seasons. But right now, you see the run is generating. He's going to have a shot going into turn 1. He pulls out. He might try and get close to him for some side draft, but you see Smith with the help from Hill. He's going to go into turn 1 side by side, and the outside's going to have an advantage. You see, actually, the 55 clips the apron, gets loose. He's going to lose the spot also to Lance Hill. We'll see if he slots in front of Healy. I don't think he did, so that's going to be another spot lost there. And that's kind of the way it works here at Pocono, Kenneth. If you're single file like this with the way the draft is, if you make a move and it doesn't stick and someone gets to your outside, you're going to lose several positions possibly.
And that freight train phenomenon, very strong here at Pocono. You already see some of the separation, a bit of side-by-side action, I think around the top 15, top 20. And most of the leaders have kind of already pulled away in their draft. You see this battle here could build up between Kyle Benson and Adam Allenshire in 14 of the Hendrick tractors. Ford Mustang just in front of him. Z-Wobbles out of the third corner. The front straightaway. Kyle Benson, of course, Francisco had a strong run in Michigan to start, and then it all fell apart very quickly. Got into incidents very early on in that race. It looked like he was going to be a contender for the win. Just did not pan out his way. Same deal for Allenshire. Both of them had very strong cars. Not show for near the end of the race. One car was very strong in Michigan about a week ago is Lance Hill, and he looked underneath Smith for the lead in turn 1, just could not make the pass complete.
Yeah, the drivers up front in this race were also fast at Michigan. That's not surprised. These big racetracks, the speedways, they're really good at these types of racetracks. Of course, Brian M. Smith, he has proven to be good just about anywhere we visit on the schedule, so he's always one to beat. But Lance Hill, he had a really good run here last season, came close to winning both the ARCA race and the Cup Series race. So we'll see if Lance Hill is able to do a good job here today and maybe come away with his four wide win. You see Smith is going to try and go down to break the draft, but Hill has none of it. He has the help actually from the 64 of Healy. He might look to the inside for turn 1. He doesn't. He's going to hold it in line and be patient. He knows he's got a long race to go. It's only lap 6 of 90, a 225-mile race today. There's a lot of action still left to go. And there you see the move to the inside now on the bottom. He's going to have an opportunity to make the pass in the tunnel turn. We'll see if he can get an advantage position-wise, because we know that inside is very tough in the tunnel.
See how he fares. Hill to the bottom, Smith holding on in the middle. Basically the top lane here at Pocono. Hill creep up right next to the outside safety barrier, but won't kiss it just yet. And they're still side by side going into turn 3. Scott Healy has a tough decision to make, whether he wants to stay with that Monster Energy Toyota Camry or whether he wants to look down low to the Ross Chastain looking Ford Mustang on the very inside. But for Healy, looks like he's going to hold his ground. Now actually making it from the Hill, will switch right back to Brian Smith. And I figure that Hill may suffer the freight train phenomenon. Actually, no, he'll get help by Sanchez going back to turn 1.
They've been side by side for a full lap now, and Smith a little bit up the racetrack, but he's going to get a run off the corner because Hill was sideways. If Hill can get to that quarter panel and just kind of drag him back, it could help, but he's not going to do that. He's going to tuck in line, prevent anybody else from trying to make some sort of pass attempt on him. He's going to settle in second and maybe try and do something else. But what I've noticed so far, Kenneth, is that these guys haven't exactly gotten strung out. You see a couple of packs forming, but they haven't exactly broken away, which is something similar we saw at Michigan, but you don't really see that. Poconos, look how loose the 16 of Roberts got there on the exit of 2. He's going to hang on to that, but he's going to lose a couple of positions possibly. But as we were mentioning there, Kenneth, it's cool conditions at this racetrack, only about 80-something degrees on the track temperature. That's extremely cool for the time of day. It's about 1 o'clock in sim, and the cloud cover is really making the racetrack nice and cool, and that's what's allowing these guys to go as fast as they are. Not maybe have so much handling issues, but it's all either aero or just very situational and trying to make a move and just not being able to make it work, because on a hot track temperature, you might see a little bit more separation and a lot more drivers having to fight the race car.
That is definitely true. I think that overcast is definitely helping a good amount of drivers, though right there out of turn 1, the sun kind of peek out just a little bit behind the clouds. Some heat to the racetrack for just a bit as Alashar will get loose. A bit of contact there up in front as Benson swerving all over the racetrack. Lawson Peel already there for the taking. Got very hairy there in that tunnel turn. It's going to pack everybody from about, looks like 9th on back up.
I believe Kyle Benson may have made contact with the 13 of Craig Lonslugger, it looks like, in the tunnel. I believe the 10 just didn't go all the way down to the bottom, and that's where you saw that smoke came from. Nothing crazy happened afterwards. Everybody able to keep it pointed in the right direction, and here we go once again, a challenge for the lead. Previous champion Scott Healy's looking to the inside of Brian M. Smith.
Every time we've seen a driver go to the inside in the opening 9 laps, it has been unsuccessful. We'll see if Healy is able to overcome that obstacle and at least surge ahead for the race lead. I believe somebody's into the inside wall. Indeed, you're right, Francisco, and it's Craig Lounslogger. There he is, car limping and absolutely stalling to a complete stop. Yellow flag will come out. Of course, that is hazardous on the racing surface. Luckily, everybody's able to get by without trouble. Craig Lounslugger has a beat-up Toyota Camry as he came out of turn 1. We saw the smoke billow out from that part in the pack. And Francisco, you had talked about the slight contact that he had made with Kyle Benson the lap before. We'll see if it's similar contact here out of 1 the next lap through. Actually, it's contact with Jacob Smith as Smith was washed up a little high. They swerved all over the place. And then Lounslugger goes from almost pointing to the inside wall to backing it up and then slamming into the outside safer barrier.
Yeah, well, we've got to look at different look at this to try and help with the angle. But it looks like the 15 may have just slid up the racetrack.
You see the 13 there was able to save it, but by the time he swerved back to get back onto the racing surface, just could not do it. Car slams into the wall. And that's one thing with these next-gen cars is that you can save a car at first, but if you keep the throttle in it, by the time you're trying to veer back to the right to get back onto the racing surface, or at least get tucked into the draft, the car does not want to follow your orders, and then just also wants to send itself around. So the rear tire spin there, a bit of contact with what looks to be Adam Alashire in the 14. Right on board with him. You see the big checkup in turn 1. Everybody, of course, trying to make sure they don't get involved in the mayhem. See the contact there, a bit of hit there to Lawson Peel, and then he's coming back on the track. Oh, and you can't get any closer than that. I think there may be some front end damage on behalf of the 14 machine. Luckily, though, I think he's able to walk away mostly unscathed. So our first caution comes out in the opening 10 laps of this 90-lap race here from the virtual Pocono Raceway. Brian Smith, still your race leader. Although he suffered a couple of challenges to the inside, he has not backed down, though Scott Healy was the last driver to do so. He was not able to make the pass complete. He'll hold on for what is currently second. So here comes the field onto pit road for the very first time tonight. Of course, 4 tires in the field most likely will be the call here, Francisco. And obviously early on, we don't expect probably a fuel strategy race just because the checkered flag is very far away from where we are currently. But in previous history, we've seen these races go down to the wire based on how much you've got left in the tank. And so this, the first stop of potentially many to get to the checkered flag, hopefully.
It is, and I think Peel may have missed his stall. You see him already exiting, and I think that may have been the case. So he's going to have to come back down pit road once more. You see a couple of 2-tire calls. There's several guys deciding to take 2 tires. We're going to see how this works out because it's a good portion of the field that did so. Brian M. Smith's going to exit down towards the 7th or 8th spot. And this is, I like this call. I like it because we get to see what 2 tires does. We only ran about 8 or so green flag laps here. So we'll see exactly how effective being able to keep the track position is, even if you have a slightly worn left side tires versus all 4 brand new ones like Brian M. Smith and the rest of those guys down the order may have on their race cars. And you mentioned it in previous seasons how we have a long run, but usually at the end of the race, we tend to have those short runs that really matter. I think today we may see that because normally, not just Pocono, but some of these speedways will always have either a long run to the finish or a green-white checkered or about less than 5 laps to go before the end of the race. It's very tough to end up with an in-between where you have just under a fuel run, but not exactly late in the race situation where you have to win it on a restart or something of the sort. So we'll see what exactly is going to be the case here tonight, and we'll see how the strategy unfolds from there.
So strategy already on the cards here was a 5.3 second stop for AJ Green. And everybody else about 6 or seconds, probably a little bit more based on the stop. So a lot of them taking 2 tire calls. And Lawson Peel did not actually end up in his stall whatsoever. So he's going to end up most likely either having to come down now, or I believe he's just going to hold on here for track position. Just going to see what he can do. And based on that small mistake, maybe
Lights
just could not see anybody, or could not see his stall rather, with everybody around him. So he's going to stay out. Dave Bush, Daniel Meacham on the drivers who started close to near the rear of the field. They're going to hold on to first and second on this first caution. Hopefully what is our first caution of not many here tonight for the virtual Pocono Raceway. So we'll have a different look at the front of the field for the first time in a little bit. And now that means, Francisco, that Brian Smith, he's going to have to do a good amount of work in this field to get all the way back up. That pit stop by its lonesome, and every driver that got around him has put him 22nd on the racetrack. Maybe a penalty issued as well.
He did sit in his box after his tires were complete, Ken. So I do believe perhaps a little bit of a fast entry there, and they must have nabbed him, and he's going to restart at the back. Or maybe that's who knows exactly what's going on with that 78 team. Sometimes we see these miscues on pit road. But he's going to have to really fight his way back through the field. But I will say, I do kind of feel bad for the 12 of Peel. He missed his stall, had to stay out. He decided to go with it anyways, but he doesn't get to be the leader, which he would have been if he had stayed out on the racetrack, much like we see the 25 and the 50 do so in front of him. So he's going to not be in an ideal situation. He's going to be with tires around him, and he's also not going to be the leader. So we'll see how it all fares. We got no tires, we got 2 tires, we got 4 tires. See which one prevails by the time we get our next inevitable yellow.
So we'll see whether we get a yellow flag, but so far, for a majority of this race, at least in the opening segment, it's been remarkably clean. We'll see if Dave Bush and everybody else can end up on a green flag run, but there's old tires versus new tires, so that's a big question in and of itself, how that's going to fare here from Pocono. Nonetheless, 2 Chevrolet Camaros on the front row. Dave Bush, Daniel Micho to the green flag back from Pocono as they sail for turn 1.
And you see everyone really trying to get to the outside, mostly Smith already taking it 3 wide further back there on the top of your screen. Michel now goes to the outside of Dave Bush. He's going to try and hang it there and maybe keep it on the outside going down towards turn 2, and he's going to actually have help, and he's going to clear him well before then. Here comes the 12 of Peel. He's going to be on the outside now in second place with the help of AJ Green, and Bush is going to fall down the order as we see how many cars are trying to line up on the outside to keep it hung there.
Everybody's trying to make moves early on this restart. Of course, we saw a couple drivers in the field string out in different packs, and I feel like these restarts, when it comes down to track position, are going to be very vital when it comes down to wanting to be at the front. You're right on board here with your defending champion, AJ Green, currently riding in third. Of course, that different stop comparative to really everybody else, who majority of them took 4, panned out in his favor. And you hear right there on the onboard camera, Francisco, he's shifting. So is the rest of the field. This track at Pocono, you're probably not going to want to ride around in 5th gear the entire time when you're going through turns 1, 2, or 3. You're probably going to want to shift down to 4th, maybe even 3rd in some extreme cases. So that's another thing we'll have to point out here as AJ Green goes to the inside for 2nd.
Yeah, the shifting was something that we didn't talk about pre-race, but it is going to be happening here today. We didn't see it much with the Gen 6 once they brought the high downforce package at this version of Pocono, because you were able to keep the speeds up. At Legacy Pocono, on the other hand, you were shifting and you'd be going down to 3rd in turns 1 and turn 3. I think here it's still the case. You're still probably going to do so in turns 1 and turn 3, but you're going to be going down to 4th primarily. I think there's enough give in the gear ratios here that you'll see guys going down to 4th, and it's still ideal enough as if it was the old car with a little bit higher revs. I think it's kind of in that sweet spot, kind of what they were hoping for with this race car, going down to 4th for corners like turn 1 right here and turn 3 on the other end of the racetrack. You see Peel actually went up the racetrack there. Now he's going to be under attack. Saw a little bit of smoke there, and actually we have a caution.
A caution out on the racetrack, and it appears Cody Kinsey is in trouble. The Quaker State number 93 Camaro with heavy front right damage. There's another car in there as well. We'll try to identify who it is on the racetrack. I believe it's Michael Newbraw. Indeed it is. Has some heavy front end and rear damage. That car is completely totaled at the exit of turn 1. So we'll see exactly what went down, whether these guys had some help, or whether these were two different instances in their own right. Here's with Newbraw. In the middle of the pack, there's Kevin D'Elia just behind him. Kyle Benson up in front, and then just loses the car going into the first corner. Kevin D'Elia nowhere to go as he swerves up the track, and then right there as he's in the middle trying to stop, Cody Kinsey is the next driver to get into him and becomes the second car involved, actually the third car involved in the incident. Take a look at the 93s on cam.
You see right here going into turn 1. You see the incident happening up ahead, hard into the wall.
Oh.
And just nowhere to go. Probably he could have taken some evasive action, but I don't think he anticipated that car coming back down the racetrack the way he did. I think he thought he'll go right by it and not have to worry about it. But unfortunately for him, it ended up right on his spike. See right there, loose, correct it, make contact with that other car right up there, that Ford Mustang, and Ryan Smith able to escape away from that one without really having to do much.
Everybody went to the inside lane to prevent getting into the car that was stuck in the middle in Michael Newbraw. Unfortunately, Cody Kinsey, the one involved, that was kind of a square hit, so I don't believe it's going to affect him too much. Remember, these drivers do have at least one faster pair here in the 4Wide Racing Cup Series, so you can go down to pit road, get that car completely back to fresh. So we'll see if the 92 does that. I think it's very tough here for the 93 because he's got a very interesting paint scheme in choose of the track, because Pocono, or at least Pennsylvania, is regarded as the Quaker State. So 93 with the Quaker State colors and the Quaker State nameplate that occupies this Pocono Raceway and the whole state of Pennsylvania. And not a good look here in the opening laps. Lap 16, we got our second yellow of the race.
Still early on in this one, Kenneth, and you know, today we're going to be at Pocono. Last week we were at Michigan, but while we have an opportunity here under caution, next week is going to be our first road course race of the season. And first of about, I believe it's going to be 3 or 4 road course races on the season, if I remember right. So we're going to have a pretty significant amount compared to previous seasons. And drivers like Brian M. Smith, who have traditionally won most of the road course races in the past. We know he's very good there. Kyle Benson, a previous winner at the Charlotte Roval, and other guys like the Stocks Motorsports guys have shown their speed there. So what can you perhaps anticipate going into a race at Road America next week?
I think I'm going to see a lot of strategy and a lot of mistakes. Usually at the road courses and with the Gen 6 car, when you had 750 horsepower and the low downforce package, drivers were very prone to those mistakes, stepping out, not taking care of their tires, overshooting a corner, wheel hopping and going around. I think you're going to see a lot of those problems in the same way, maybe just a little bit worse with this Gen 7 car, just because of the way the diffusers there are on the underwing. You've got different aerodynamic features in this car, and it's a lot harder to save naturally by its own self. So I think we're going to see a lot of mistakes at Road America. We're going to see a lot of good strategy. I feel like that's going to be a very good strategic race. It's going to force these drivers and their teams to really think about, okay, when am I going to come down pit road? When is my teammate coming down? When is the driver in front of me coming down? And Road America, usually known for its very long pit delta and a very slow pit speed limit. So that also does play into pit road strategy and how drivers want to kind of overcome that, get over the slide, and of course try to get to the checkered flag in first. That's everybody's goal at the end of the day. Well, you said it, Francisco. A lot of heavy hitters, Brian Smith being one of them, Kyle Benson, we've seen him do very good on the road courses as well. But who knows? We may see more drivers step into the fold and do well on the circuits that we'll see over the course of the season. Road America, our first, will have Circuit of the Americas. That is going to be a completely wild-carded race. And then we're going to have Watkins Glen, which was a favorite from previous seasons in 4-wide Cup schedule. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see the road courses. But I think, Francisco, if there's any of the road course races that you're excited to see, are you excited to go to the National Park of Speed first, or do you think there's more excitement to be had when we go to New York and Watkins Glen, or when we go to Circuit of the Americas later this year?
Watkins Glen is a very fast road course, so I think that one's going to be great. Road America, very lengthy, more of a classic road course in a sense. And of course, Circuit of the Americas is a rather new road course built within the last decade, specifically made for Formula One. So always, whenever a stock car races there, it's very interesting. But if you ask me, I would like to see a race with these cars thrown around the Red Bull ring. That would be ideal for me.
You know what? Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I was expecting you to not point that out right now, but you know what? I think that would be pretty good. We've seen a lot
Especially
of good
with
races.
These cars.
Yeah, these cars would do well at the Red Bull Ring. I'd love to see them go back to Montreal. I think Montreal was a big favorite of the NASCAR Nationwide Series a couple years back. I think their last race was 2011, but it was a great race. They couldn't land the Cup date, and I kind of wish they did just because of how good that track is. And I think we have something in common there. Montreal, Red Bull Ring, both Formula One tracks in the schedule, so I guess you got something to hold on to there. But we'll skip the track talk right now. We'll focus more on the three-headed beast that is this Pocono Raceway, and the driver who's got the head out front, Daniel Michel. He'll be the driver that leads us back to green flag racing, and remarkably so, even on old tires, he's done well to keep himself up front despite a lot of the charges from behind. Lawson Peel is going to be on the inside of that first row. Michel choosing the outside this time, going to go into turn 1. So everybody going to fan out to turn 1. Everybody's going to go into the 14 degrees of banking with hopes that they can make some passes. Danny Michel going to hope that nobody gets by him whatsoever. Green flag back in the air. Michel goes up the gears, and already to notice Francisco Peel with a very good start, although he'll tuck back in. Here comes Alishar with a move for third.
And a block there by Healy. You see him kind of pulling out, making sure the 14 doesn't get to his inside. That'll keep him side by side in his rear view mirror. And it's crucial for those two to stay in the front. Remember, they're on slightly older tires. If they can keep the track position, they'll be in a good spot. But AJ Green, I think, tries to go to the outside while Peel goes for the lead on the 25. It's not going to be a good move for him in the end because Michel's going to keep the lead, but he crucially stays ahead of the 48. But Michel's going to go wide. He might tag the wall. He doesn't, but they're all going to go by him on the bottom.
Michel just got overcome with understeer there, coming out of the tunnel turn. We're almost 3 wide, going into turn 3. That was Joe Sanchez on the very bottom. AJ Green was packing it through the middle. Lawson Peel was able to surge ahead, and he takes the race lead. Look at everybody trying to fan out, but the caution would immediately come out, and it looks like maybe Christopher Bishop involved in the incident, maybe a bit of damage, and it's Kyle Benson near the rear of the field involved, and we did not want to see this coming out of Michigan with how bad of a race it ended up turning out to be for him. And this already turns negative, very sour here for Kyle Benson at lap 20.
Yeah, this has not been the start of the season he's wanted to. After Daytona, he had a really good Daytona performance. And you saw right there, briefly 4 wide right in front of him out of the tunnel turn. They narrow it down to 3 wide. And I think what we're going to see here is someone probably didn't get some sort of memo. And right there, just converging on each other, the 50 and the 10. He backs it into the wall. Spins a little bit more out of control than you'd probably expect for how slowly he backed it in. You see right there, almost 4 wide, but gets a minor tag, backs it into the wall rather lightly for the spin he did have, but the car aggressively started spinning around like a top after hitting the wall. You see right there, a rather gentle tap, a gentle tag to the wall, but aggressively spins back around. And I think Bishop must have had the damage elsewhere. You saw someone get in the grass. Or he must have had that damage from before, because you see right there, before the accident, he already has it. So I wonder where that came from.
Maybe just from a lot of drivers being aggressive. Bishop, one of the drivers to get around, so apologies for that. Benson, really the only one that got tagged in it. And if you saw the onboard camera there from Benson's view, and that car was loose from the entrance to the corner all the way to the crash. It didn't look like he had the car in control by the time he hopped on the brakes to slow down. And, of course, he was outside 3 wide. Dave Busch was underneath him in the middle. So, obviously, that doesn't help when you're focusing on 3 wide while still trying to keep your car intact. And for Benson, got loose, chased the car down the venue in that 3rd turn. And, of course, got into Dave Busch, gets involved in that crash. That brings us under yellow once again at that 21 of 90. Here's some drivers that are coming down pit road. Dave Busch being one of them. That's Mark Harris. previous winner this season at Auto Club. I see Curtis Kelly. I see the 14. See a lot of front-running drivers that did come down for service. So very interesting to see all of them come in for what's going to be, I believe, their second stop of the race. So maybe strategy playing into the hands, and I think it's going to be very important here, Francisco, because among those heavy hitters is AJ Green, who was fighting for top 3 not too long ago.
And AJ Green down pit road, and I think it's important to note, Kenneth, we've had guys already come in at least twice in the first 20 laps for service, and I think it's an important reminder that Daniel Michaud and Lawson Peel have not come down pit road at any point in this race to this point. They're 1 and 3, so right now the track position game seems to be working out for the most part with these guys. I think maybe 2 tires is going to be a definite option if staying out is not perhaps available, if we have a long enough run and old enough left side tires, maybe right side to work. But it is showing that it is not particularly dangerous or risky of a strategy to go for a strategy like 2 tires on a restart like this, or even staying out if the tires are young enough. So we might see some new faces up in the front if we get long enough into a run, or have just the right pit sequence unfold.
And now you just got to wonder whether guys like Peel or Michaud are anticipating this. A lot of cautions coming out very frequently, or if they're just hoping for a long green flag run to happen so that they can kind of formulate their plan and get into the motions. That's Jacob Smith faking on a pit road. Michaud also doing the same. I think it's probably not good to second guess here by the time we're going to get close to green flag. As the lights are out on the iRacing official pace car, we will again have another gridlock on the front row with 2 Chevrolet Camaros leading us back to racing here from Pocono Raceway. Had a comment in the YouTube chat that said, I think Ivy caused that wreck, right, Max Speed? Well, Ivy's not in this race, so I don't know. But maybe he was influencing somewhere. Maybe he's in the stands. Who knows? I'm not sure. Maybe he's in that floating shed on the outside of turn 2. I have no idea.
Who knows? He's probably somewhere in the property, and maybe that's enough. But I did search Kenneth during the caution, and the last race at Montreal in the NASCAR Extended Series was in 2012. Most famous for Danica Patrick running over a shoe.
Oh, yes. Okay, so it was 2012. I remember that race. Patrick dominating the race up until the shoe incident, like we call it. And then obviously had some problems with the car. I think it was an axle problem, if I'm not sure. But there was something that was wrong with that car after she hit the shoe. And it was unfortunate because she looked like she had a winning pace all day long up until that point. I think the biggest memory I have from Montreal was 2010, the race where it was Max Pappas, Boris Said, drag race to the start-finish line in the final lap. So what was a very chaotic one up until that point. And Boris Said nosed ahead by just a couple of inches at the line to get the win before they got back into turn 1. And Boris Said was able to celebrate a great win in his Ford Fusion, what was a rather unsponsored car back at that time. So very good memories from Montreal. Hopefully we get to see it back again on the schedule.
For me, just before we go green, one of my main memories of that racetrack is it's whatever involves Jacques Villeneuve. I feel like every time we went to that racetrack, Jacques Villeneuve was doing something to put his name out there, whether it was good or not so good.
Oh, Marcos Ambrose too. Can't forget him, the name that was so close to victory so many times. I think 2011, his first trip to victory lane in the north of Canada. As we're back onto the green flag here in the northeast of the United States, Lawson Peel, who has yet to pit throughout this race over the first 23, will command the field to green. Not a lot of help of draft going into turn 1. Joe Sanchez going to try to take it away, going to close up to the quarter panel, not going to make headway just yet. He'll tuck it behind. Field fans out of the first corner to the first straightaway. A couple of drivers hit the outside wall, and for the most part, we're clean.
You see some moves being made there towards the inside, but when guys stay single file, it really creates a huge vacuum effect, and they're able to fill that, leave a car on the bottom. And look who's already made his way back into the top 10. That's the 78 of Brian M. Smith. He's really starting to get up there, and it looks as though we may have a battle in the front of the field. I believe Joe Sanchez has taken the lead away. He's on the inside, and I think he's clear, and indeed he is. He moves past the 12 of Lawson Peel, so move the 55 to the front, but don't give it to him just yet. You see already the snake trailing. The Peel got to run off of 3, and they're all starting to snake trail. This is the best looking part.
Everybody going to the inside to try and keep draft with the 55, and it worked in favor of Lawson Peel. He stays right there in the bumper, and Sanchez locks up the brakes, slides the car into the first corner. Peel will take back the lead, and now we got to wonder how much of a fall off will Sanchez have from that one mistake.
You saw he was going really fast into the turn. You just have to wonder, that was a little bit too quick, and indeed it was. Had to lock up the tires and even locked up the rears a little bit. You saw the back end step out. A fantastic job to keep it under him in order to keep the spot. So he's able to stay in second at the very least. Smith is now up to third. I think Danny Michel might have some right front damage. You see Smith does as well with the flap there. You're able to kind of see the racetrack do a little crease right there, and it looks as though Michel does as well. So wondering where these guys may have got their damage on the race cars. It might be impacting some of their speed. But Joe Sanchez, a fantastic save. He keeps a clean race car, and now he's fighting off for second.
Well, thank goodness he was able to keep it out of the outside wall, because that could have been day over, or at least a day almost done, as he slides it back into one. This time not overshooting the corner, but the car steps out, trying to go over those very harsh bumps in turn one. Brian Smith now going to look to the inside for second. You are right, though, Francisco. A lot of drivers with the right front damage, and I think that's in part. Everybody's just trying to push their cars, and a lot of them are going into the outside wall, especially here. This tunnel turn is very prone to a lot of drivers stepping out, getting the understeer, and then the car just travels straight to the wall, and then you have no option but to try and slow down. But most of the time, when you do try and slow down, it is already way too late to get the car back straight, so then everybody just packs it in to that safer barrier. But luckily enough, it doesn't seem to be harming the speed all too much for the drivers that are running around the racetrack, especially in the front. Right on board here with the 11, a winner in this season in round one, Austin Riddy. He started kind of deep in this field, had to work his way through, had to kind of muscle his way through a lot of drivers, but he's into the top four for the first time at lap 26, and he's got a very quick race car so far, Francisco. Don't think you should sleep here on this number 11 Chevrolet Camaro as he closes in on Joe Sanchez to try and ponder a move for third.
Yeah, one of the guys at the top of the point standings after his win at Daytona, trying to see if he can get a second win of the season. And then we see Michel had a moment there in turn two with the 15, and Healy with the big run's going to go to the outside, maybe trying to take 2 for 1. He doesn't quite get clear of Smith there going into turn 3, as Smith put on a fantastic side draft effort to try and stay in front of him. He's going to try and slide up off the corner, and he's got the spot once more. So a fantastic defense. But look at this. They're all snake trailing at the front. Kenneth Peel knows that the 78 has some better tires, and actually a caution is going to come out now. This might give him an opportunity to come down pit road.
That'll make him think just a bit, I believe. Incident here with the 27 of Dustin Webb. You see a beat-up Castro Chevrolet Camaro. Did not see a lot of that damage earlier on in tonight's race. So Webb may be the victim here. As of lap 27, we get under another caution here tonight. Actually, not sure whether I think he picked up more damage from this, so I don't think he was the sole cause of it, as I believe it'll happen right in front of him at the exit of 3. But Webb is a part of it nonetheless. He tags the wall, and actually he is the main character here. That was another driver that just got into the rear. That's the 33 of Tyler Warner.
And you saw right there, he actually got some air time. You see, tags the wall. Warner has nowhere to go, and underneath the race car he goes.
See a great save, though, by the 27 to keep it out of harm's way, keep it out of the inside wall for the most part. Warner, though, not as lucky. His car just traveled straight, and he was an absolute passenger there. Take a look, and I talked about some of the right front damage. You brought it up first, and I tried to expand on it a bit, just from drivers hitting that outside wall. That's a pure case of it, but this time causes a spin and brings out yet again another yellow. What's been a yellow-written race so far over the first 28.
Yeah, sometimes we tend to see portions of the race at this go at the Pocono Raceway. There's always ends up being that one run where we go long enough for a fuel run. We haven't quite seen that yet. Hopefully we do at some point in the middle portion, maybe preferably towards the end of the race. But right now it's been Lawson Peel for the most part in control of this race. He's yet to come down pit road. I think it'll be open this time. And he's most likely having to pit here, Kenneth. And I only say that because with the fuel window that these guys have, the actual number of laps that they can run is somewhere between 30 and 32. And with all the caution laps, it's probably closer to 35. But I don't think you want to, at this point in his fuel run, I don't think he wants to continue staying out knowing that the chance of a green flag pit stop is looming, because sure, you might not get a super long run, but it doesn't take one for you to have to come down pit road and lose track position. It could be a 10-lap run, and you have to pit in those first 10 laps and lose that track position. I think the 12 is going to come down pit road.
And he seems to be trending in that direction, so while majority of the field will stay out, Lawson Peel going to be one of the lone drivers to come in. You have Danny Mitchell, that's Jacob Smith, Jesse Priest among those that are coming in behind him. But apart from the drivers in the top 5, Lawson Peel going to be the first one to come in. Of course, he will look for 4 fresh tires and some fuel to get him on his way. So that will transfer the lead back to your pole sitter tonight, Brian M. Smith. Austin Reedy will hold on to 2nd. Joe Sanchez will occupy the inside of the top 3. Scott Healy will be 4. Tony Kivet, what a run it's been for him in the first stint of this race. He's now opened up to the top 5, and same deal for Tyler Murray, who didn't put a qualifying time tonight, but since has moved up through the field, has kind of wandered his way through strategy, has threaded the needle a couple times, but he's up to 6, and it's been a good move from him so far in this race. So we talked about it pre-race, Francisco, before we started, before we got live here on MaxSpeedTV, and I was looking up the different winners that we've seen here at Pocono Raceway in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series schedule. Last season, we saw Jovi Ray have a breakout win. Unfortunately, Jovi Ray is not here to defend his Pocono greatness. And then the season before that, we had James Holzer, who went from up to down, up to down, up to down, and then got to the checkered flag at the end of it all to take that win. And what that means, with Holzer and Ray not in this race, is that we're probably guaranteed to have a different winner here in Pocono, especially with this league's history over the past couple of years and in 2021 going into 2022. So I think that maybe something a lot of these drivers may be thinking about, Francisco, maybe some bragging rights saying, hey, I'm the 3rd different winner here at Pocono, and I am currently still active, so I can defend it next season if I want to.
That's very much the case. Unfortunately, that Pocono race that Holzer won was his last race in this series, and you mentioned that Joey Ray is simply not with us tonight, so the window is wide open for someone to take their first Pocono win, and whoever gets the win is going to be just that person, a different winner. So it could be anybody in the field. It could be Brian M. Smith. It could be the 55 of Joe Sanchez. We could talk about the 12 of Peel winning once more. It doesn't matter who wins this race. They're going to be a first-time Pocono winner in the series, and they'll be able to have that sort of bragging right going forward. And of course, it becomes a bigger deal, the amount of wins you have a racetrack as the seasons progress, because right now we're sitting at a season 4, and hopefully this have some longevity in it. But once you start getting towards, for example, a season 6, a season 7, if you have multiple wins at a racetrack that traditionally has new winners, that's a very significant bragging rights you can have, and stuff like that starts with races like this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is going to set the trend. It's kind of like a domino effect. You move one down, and then all the other ones behind it just start to fall in, and then you see exactly what the grand effect of it is. You were looking at Lawson Peel, the first driver to come down pit road on that recent yellow. He is now currently back in 17th, I believe 16th year, since Jesse Priest has just moved a little bit in front of him. Both of them going to occupy row 8 here on this restart. That's how far Peel has to get to go back to the race lead where he once was pretty comfortably before that yellow came out, and he obviously made the step to come in for fuel and tires. So we will have a Toyota Camry up at the front of the field, but it's only been this Camry to hold the field at bay for the most part. Brian M. Smith, who led the field to green, he'll be leading us on this restart here. Lap 31 of 90. Austin Reedy will be to his outside. He's been very aggressive to start. No doubt a lot of speed behind that 11 machine. Joe Sanchez in 3rd. Scott Healy in 4th. Tyler Murray occupies your top 5. And then it's Tony Kivet, AJ Green, Colin Forrester, who started dead last in this race, Adam Alashire, and Lance Hill. A lot of Stocks Motorsports drivers in full force here at Pocono on this restart. Very long way to go. Got a lot of strategy on our hands. More racing to come here from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. We'll wait for Brian M. Smith to have discretion as the pace car will make its way to the entrance of pit road. And you probably don't want to hear us talking on this restart, so we'll crank it up here on MaxSpeedTV. the exit of turn 1 on the back straightaway. That is Tony Kibbett, who packed the inside safety barrier. His car is torn up. And as we were on our Crank It Up segment, saw it from one of the rear cameras of one of the cars up in front. And the Coca-Cola Chevrolet Camaro goes for a slam and brings out a caution on that 33 of 90.
We saw a couple of close calls there while we were under Crank It Up, and it looked like it may have just been a case of not clear. We're going to see exactly what happened. See AJ Green on the inside. I think he tries to come up, get between him, and indeed so. He tries to move up and right into the part of that wall that sticks out. And look at that. Everybody doing a fantastic job to spread out and miss that wreck. If we go on board with the 76, I think we'll see it's not going to be pretty. He hits right where that wall sticks out.
It's a beautiful way of getting around the ailing 76. Take a look on board, and that's what it was. Francisco, you were right. Case of not clear. Green thought he had more room than he actually did. Tried to tuck it in the draft, which is very important because obviously Green, in this situation, he doesn't want to get freight trained because Eric Schaefer and company, they go to the outside to help Kibbett here on the exit of turn 1. So Green just figures, okay, I'll tuck in, I'll get in the draft, but just had the bumper aligned with the rear bumper there of the 76 in the wrong place, wrong time, and then turns Tony Kibbett into the inside wall. That car severely torn up. Luckily, he was able to tow it back to pit road, so he will, of course, employ that fast repair that he has had waiting for him on pit road ever since the crash. And we are again under yellow flag situation. That was a big hit, and I think even worse, Francisco just hit the little kink in the wall that kind of moves. It's not completely straight. It's straight at the latter half of it, but in that first half, it's kind of a little dip in to allow the safety trucks to get out. By the time of yellow, he just hit that part of the wall at the worst possible time.
Yeah, when you hit the end of that wall just before it turns straight, that's very tough because if you slide into that at the right angle, the car will spin faster than normal because as you move away from that wall, you go at an angle back onto the racetrack. The back end doesn't have anything to catch. Normally when you hit the wall, the back end's able to hit the wall again and it kind of slows down the spin. But after that, it just goes like for a ride up on the racetrack. And, you know, AJ Green obviously was trying to get in line for the draft, as you mentioned, because he saw the 22 behind and knows that if he does not move up as quick as possible, he could lose 2 or 3 spots by no fault of his own. And unfortunately, takes out the 76 in the process just by mere inches. But how many times have we seen that? Probably most notably in the last couple of years, we saw that with Mark Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch over at Bristol.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Kibbett comes down pit road. There he is coming out of his stall. Luckily, he did have the fast repair with him, so he's got a fresh Chevrolet Camaro to move on. Of course, that is, though, severely torn up track position. He's not going to have any of that by the time we go back to Green Flag Racing. AJ Green, who got into the 76, has a bit of front-end damage. He's going to take a moment to stop, take a moment to wait. Eric Schaefer is going to be behind him as well. They're also getting some batch of service on their race cars, respectively. Lawson Peel, by the way, started 16th on the restart. On his call to come down pit road, the previous caution, he has only made 3 spots since the drop of the green. There he is, 13th on the track right now. So I don't believe, Francisco, tires are as big of a factor as I think we were anticipating here. Usually, for the most part, when you got a driver on fresh rubber versus a driver on worn-out tires, you'd see the driver on worn-out tires struggle so much, and then the drivers on the fresh rubber just kind of pass by them like a rocket ship. But it seemed as though when you make tire calls, even if it's kind of significant, it doesn't seem to have as big of an effect as maybe it used to in previous years.
I think that's exactly right what you're saying there. The difference between, I think, the likes of the 78 and the 12 in terms of how many laps your tire has is close to about 15 laps. So that's almost half a run. And the 12 is not really able to make up that much of a positions-wise, that much of a deficit. And, you know, how much of that is the car and how much of that is the brand new tire? Because we can talk about the car, of course, but the tire itself, they changed the way they designed the tires. It's a bit of a lower profile tire, so you got more rim area, less actual sidewall of the physical tire itself, and the dimensions, I believe, were also changed as well. So all these aspects changed, of course, how the tire is heated, how it interacts with the racetrack, the forces inside of that. And though you might think it just changes the visuals, it changes a lot more of that, and it could be affecting the way the tires are wearing right now. Why the guys with rookie tires are kind of able to hold their own more often.
Yeah, that is a fair point. That also makes me think about Las Vegas in the fact that when drivers got cold tires, when they had fresh rubber, those cars were severely unstable. They could not keep the car straight when they're pushing 150%. Meanwhile, when you get a couple laps in these Goodyear Eagles on the next-gen car, it kind of stabilizes itself, and then you're really able to find the limits of what this car is all about. So maybe in some cases, I may be completely wrong, and Lawson Peel just maybe isn't pushing it right now. He's just waiting for things to settle out. And it also doesn't help that he's in a stop-and-go situation at the moment if yellows continue to fly in the manner that they have. But we'll keep an eye on the 12 machine of Peel. Again, he's searching for his third straight win here in the 4Wide Racing Cup Series Season 4. Got the win at Vegas, got the win at Michigan 1 week ago. Going to be looking for third at a track that is very bizarre to many. And we'll see how many positions Peel can cram up by the time we get into a potential run as we close in on halfway in this 90-lap race from Pocono Raceway. So we'll have a green flag set for lap 37 of 90. Pace car will make its way gently to the inside of pit road. It'll be Brian M. Smith, Austin Reedy, this time a switcheroo. Smith choosing the outside in that first row. They're going up the gears, back up to the gas, and off of Brian Smith's discretion, we're back green.
Good launch for Smith, but the inside, you see those cars are kind of lined up, Reedy and Healy. They're going to have a run into turn one. I don't think he'll get to the inside of Smith, and he does not indeed, but he's able to get to the inside of Joe Sanchez, and if he holds it there, could maybe pose a threat for that second spot. Smith is going to have the advantage off the corner, though, and you see he's going to drag Joe Sanchez with him, and Sanchez, I don't think he'll make a move going into turn two, so your top three is going to stay as is.
Everybody's mostly going to be single file. The first side-by-side battle is for fourth currently. Scott Healy on the inside of Stonk Motorsports is Colin Forster, who almost about got into the outside wall there coming out of the tunnel turn, but he's able to beat the 64 coming on the exit of the corner. And Colin Forster has made a really big pickup from the start of this race, and he started back in 32nd. Dead last in this race. Didn't put a qualifying time earlier on in the session, so it has been a trot up to the top of the field, and it's been very good for the 99 of Colin Forster as of right now. We've got a battle for the lead, this time outside move. Joe Sanchez did not try and snake trail the 78, did not follow him in the draft, so he found the way up top, and now he's got a nose ahead out of turn one.
Yeah, he was able to get in front of to the outside of the 78. The 78 went to defend the bottom, but defend the draft, and what it did to him, he allowed the car to the 55 to get to the outside, almost contacted Scott Healy a little bit further back there as he does get in line around the fourth spot. A loose moment there off of turn two, but that's going to hand the lead over to Joe Sanchez for the first time today. And Joe Sanchez, of course, got his first win last season at Talladega. We weren't able to bring the coverage to you on that one, but he was able to sweep the weekend at Talladega Superspeedway, another 2.5-mile racetrack. He's looking to try and be 2 for 2 on those types of racetracks in the last couple of events.
Joe Sanchez, of course, very good in this 4Wide Racing Cup Series. Has been around for a little bit. And I remember one of our standout moments from this driver was when he was at Kansas Speedway and completely flipped up end over end, coming into turn 3 in a very bizarre crash, and then came back to run up for the win at the very end when he got his faster pair. So that just shows you how resilient this 55 is. Of course, he's gotten wins in the 4Wide Cup season over ARCA and Cup. And looking for, once again, another one here as we'll close in lap 40 of 90. He's put a bit of a gap to Austin Reedy, who almost had a challenge there from Forster, who then almost had a challenge from Smith behind him. And at this point, more separation here through about the top 5. And even if you look behind the likes of Alishire, there and Hill, there is pretty much nobody in sight except for Kevin D'Elia, who runs an 8th.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we were talking about, how the top couple cars can get away and sort of start forming their own packs. And as soon as you break the draft with the rest of the field, you'll be fine. You see a little bit of a wall tap there or D'Elia. But while you were on the topic there, Kenneth, I do remember that race, and I remember most about it is probably about 5 seconds before that happened. I was saying how he avoided being in a wreck, and he ended up being fine. As I finished saying those words, his car was going into the air big time.
Whoa, big send right there in a turn 2, and that did not work out at all for Brian Smith. Gets into Colin Forster and goes hard into the outside safer barrier. What happened there in the tunnel turn for Smith?
It looked so reminiscent of the accident we were talking about, actually. It looks as though they were going into the tunnel turn, and I don't think the 78 was going all the way to the bottom. He made an aggressive dive you saw there in that frame. We'll get a good look at it all the way back here. He got to run on the 99. Tries to go for a move. He's going to try and send it, but he's just not clear and hard into the wall, getting some air in the meantime. That is a vicious crash for the 78. And you wonder how aggressive was he trying to be to get back to the front of the field. You knew he was fast, but did he also know the patience that he had to make this move? You see, they're going to check up in front of him, but if your hand view right there, you saw him completely miss the bottom of the racetrack. At what point do you realize that that's probably not going to make it?
I'm not sure, but I figured that because they checked up, he probably hoped and prayed that he was going to be clear by the time he got out of the corner and that Forster would back out. But by the time he made the move, I don't think Forster really knew what was going on. And by the time he was going to react, he was hooking the 78 into the outside wall at that point. So that's just a tough place to be in if you're any one of those drivers there. And for Smith, that aggressive move takes him out very, very quickly. That is so unfortunate for a driver who was so fast. Here's on board with Alashire. This is going to be a very interesting sight as Smith goes barely over the top of him.
Yeah, we've had a couple cars that have had a good look at the undercarriage of some of these other cars. That's not exactly something you want to be aiming for in a race. I think there was one last season where we saw a phenomenon like this. I think we saw it at Bristol. We saw a lot of guys able to show the underside of their race cars, and that was not exactly something to be glad about in that one, but I think we're seeing reminiscence of that here today.
I think that was just the thing with the ARCA series last season. We made that joke where we went a couple of races in a row with a driver, at least one driver, going end over end somewhere, whether they're
Olympic
sideways.
trials.
Yeah, going for a space program. I think we joked about that too as well. And Brian Smith goes for some big airtime there in the tunnel turn. As there's a look from Colin Forster. He plucked his faster pair off, so very interesting. Didn't have too much damage on the front end of his Camaro, but Francisco, is this a worthy call at this point of the race?
I'm not sure. He didn't have too much damage on his race car. Well, of course, we don't know if anything on the steering-wise was bent, but based off the visuals on that race car, I probably wouldn't have used it. Try to preserve it for the end of the race in case something were to happen, but perhaps he feels that it's probably right in his decision to take the faster pair now, maybe feel that you won't get involved in something else from here on to the end of the race, maybe try and better yourself now so you can be ahead of it all. I'm not sure. Of course, I'm not the driver in the seat making that decision here today, but if it were me, I probably would have tried to keep it in the back pocket. I probably would not try to use a faster pair in the first 3 quarters of the race, just to make sure that if anything were to occur in the last quarter, I know that I have that there as an insurance policy. But maybe he feels that he's good to go for the second half of this race, and look who that puts out in front, the 10 of Kyle Benson.
And Kyle Benson was into the wall in turn 3 earlier on after contact with Dave Bush. He was outside 3 wide, and with the faster pair, he's kept his head in it, and now staying out on this yellow, he will assume the race lead with Curtis Kelly back in second. And by the way, this is the first time, I think, this season we see Curtis Kelly in a manufacturer that is not Ford, in a Chevrolet this Wednesday on a Kodak paint scheme. Very good-looking car here on behalf of the 71 tonight. But usually we're expected to see the NASA colors, the very bright colors out of Curtis Kelly's machine and a Ford Mustang. But this time going to switch it up. We hope that it helps him on the route to what could be his first victory this season. Curtis Kelly, I think, Francisco, we've touched on it just a bit throughout the opening races of the season. So good with this next-gen car. He's put himself in the right place at the right time, but it hasn't been all luck. He's had a lot of pace to back it up as well, so no doubt Curtis Kelly could be in a place to get a race win at some point in this season. We don't know quite when, but based off of the results that we've seen over the first 6 rounds or so, that 71 is somewhere. He's going to end up in victory lane quite sooner than we think.
I think this goes back to what we talked about at Daytona at the beginning of the season. We knew that the guys who were fast last season and in previous seasons, they were going to be fast. But I think we were going to see a couple of new faces occasionally show up to the front of the field. And Curtis Kelly has been one of those guys with this next-gen car. Sometimes the top drivers either have issues or are at their A game, and you happen to be, and you could take some massive advantage out of that, and you're able to knock on these performances. And I think the most notable one was Lawson Peel. Last season had 2 wins, of course, really good, getting his 2nd win at the season finale, but so far in only 6 races has 3 race wins already. So I think that's probably the prime example of what a new car can do for somebody. Just have a different taste, a different type of handling to really worry about, and it could make the difference all over the world for your season. And at some point in the season, probably at a not surprising racetrack, I hope to bring out my Red Bull paint out here on the racetrack.
Hopefully so. We'll have to see when you step in to the driver's seat instead of the broadcast booth seat. But for now, we've got Kyle Benson, Curtis Kelly on the front row. And by the way, to touch on your point, Francisco, and we talked about it early on in the season, this next-gen car is so drastically different. Everybody pretty much having to relearn a brand new race car. Pace car going to make its way down a pit road. Again, 2 Camaros helming the front of the field. Kyle Benson, though, is your leader, and they're wrecking already near the midfield. It's a big stack up there, and it all started, I believe, with Austin Reedy. Jacob Smith involved, Matt Roberts involved.
Oh, man.
And what happened there on the restart? I think they just stacked up, just brought everybody together at the same place, same time, and the contact started. There's a look at Reedy's machine, as we'll take a look and hit the rewind button, see exactly what went down.
I think you're right there, Kenneth. That's normally what happens on these restarts is if you get too many guys bunched up and someone times the start, the rest of the field kind of judges off that. You see it right there already going on in front with the aid of Murray, and eventually someone doesn't get the memo, and then they start wrecking a little bit further back. So we'll try and see that once more just to really bring it to you. You see the 8 right there checks up. They start running into the back. The 14 gets into the back. 16 gets hit by the 33. Down the racetrack he goes, gets in front of Matt Robert, or the 15 of Jacob Smith, that is. And unfortunately, those guys are going to have some damage to their race cars. And you see right there, what we saw right there anyways, they're about 6, 7, 8 rows behind where the problem started. So all the way back there, and they get involved in something that they had nothing to do with. So it's very frustrating. You see right there, the 8 checks up, 27 gets into the back of him. That goes all the way back, because as soon as you see somebody go, you think go, and if they're not going, you have to check up, and that only exacerbates the problem the further back you go.
And we saw the same incident happen twice, just with 2 different results. Austin Reedy checked up, of course, hit the car in front of him. I believe it was Joe Sanchez, and then got hit on the rear bumper by Adam Alishar. You'll see it a little bit further up here. That gray and black Chevy Camaro with the red and black Ford Mustang. They stack up right here, slams into Sanchez, then gets hit by Alishar, who then obviously Hill hits. But when Reedy got hit, he just slammed into the car on the inside and kept it straight. But when Roberts gets hit from the rear by Tyler Warner, just finds open space and slams into Jacob Smith. And then by that time, he's already 90 degrees sideways on the front straightaway. And that's a huge stack-up effect, and we hadn't seen that really all night long. A lot of the restarts very clean, maybe some checkups here and there, but it wasn't too drastic this time. I think the first time we've seen a restart go catastrophically wrong like that.
It's just been that kind of day, right? At some point, that was probably going to happen when you have this kind of attrition, this kind of setting. And looks like we have a lot of guys that came down pit road there. Obviously, some for damage repairs, but maybe some trying to manufacture a strategy. Right now, if you were to pit right now, you can make it on one more stop between now and the end of the race. So that would not be a bad idea to consider coming down pit road, maybe putting yourself on an alternate strategy. But it's just been that kind of race, Kenneth. We've had a lot of attrition, a lot of cars still in the race, just a lot of cars been able to pick up some damage, mostly neglectable, but a couple of guys have had to pull the trigger on the fast repair. Most recently, that being, of course, the 78 before this caution, that is now the 16 and 15 perhaps had to use theirs. And it's not been easy. When you get into a race like this, it could be frustrating behind the wheel if you're guys involved in these wrecks, if you're guys not involved in these wrecks, because the one thing in common is that it just makes the race feel a lot longer, because we've been already up in the booth in this race for about an hour and 15 minutes, and just now we just completed the halfway lap. If you slap those two on together, you're looking at least a 2.5 hour race, perhaps 3 hours up in the booth being live.
That's a long time. Of course, for these drivers, it wears them out mentally, because when you see a lot of cautions come out and you're just forced to slow down after trying to build up a rhythm under green flag circumstances, starts to hurt, and you start to get a little frustrated. You start to get a little annoyed with what's going on. And sometimes that forces drivers to be more aggressive just because they just want to be up front. They want to be away from all the trouble. And then it just continues to go over and over and over again. It's like an endless cycle. And then behind the driver's seat, you're just wondering, when is this race going to end? When am I going to have a chance to make positions up? When am I going to have a chance to run green flag laps? And we'll see the frustration subside and whether we get a green flag run all the way to the end. Like you said, Francisco, already halfway in this race. So while we're on the 1 to green signal from the iRacing official pace car, we'll take a moment to look at our race summary. We've got 44 laps to go here from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. We've had a total of 7 cautions to start this race. Actually, that is not exactly true. Had to restart our telemetry, so that is more than 7. No doubt 17 laps on the caution with the 7 cautions. But, of course, way more caution laps than the one you're seeing on the screen on the bottom right. We've had a total of 8 lead changes since we restarted our telemetry, but with no doubt we've had a lot more with the cautions and, of course, with some of the good racing we've seen in between. I think that's the thing, Francisco, is that when you're a driver, it wills you out mentally because you know that there's good racing when you're going green flag racing. You hate to see the field under yellow having to slow up and slow down and run single file most of the time when you know you could be out with the green flag out when Barney has it in hand and be dogfighting for the lead or any other position.
I think that's a situation you find yourself in either in NIS or specifically the NIS crown jewel events like the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, especially that one. It's a long race, and if you get a lot of cautions in those races, that could really make it feel long, especially with the good racing you have at those racetracks. I think that's kind of what these guys are experiencing in the first half of this race. So a couple things to note before we take the green. One car out of the race just recently, Austin Bloom. He's out, the only retirement of the race so far. And that's about it, really. That's everybody that's out of the race right now. We haven't had that many out, and pace car is going to make that left turn and onto pit road, and we're going to be back under green.
Also to note, everybody apart from Bloom, who DNF'd, is on the lead lap. Green flag back in the air. Kyle Benson, though, with a very convincing start to take the lead away. Curtis Kelly going to have to fight for what's going to be the battle, maybe for second or third. That's Eric Schaefer all the way to the inside, trying to make a move happen into turn 1. His time not going to do so. Banks will arc out the corner in turn 1, so Schaefer will come back to the quarter panel and indeed will be door-to-door with that 88 machine by the exit of the first corner. You see a couple of drivers going 3 wide. Field fanning out to the mid-pack. It's a hornet's nest back there. Kyle Benson, though, glad he's not a part of it going into the tunnel turn.
Peel on the inside, tries to go 3 wide. He's going to be on the apron. He's able to keep it under control, but a close call there for the Peel. And actually a crash. The 22 Schaefer to the inside wall.
Schaefer in the inside wall, but I believe no caution on the racetrack. Schaefer slow there. I believe a hard hit to the inside wall. Of course, he was battling just for top 3 credit with Brandon Banks. And they slowed up dramatically here as you watch the gap about a second between Kyle Benson and Curtis Kelly. Not sure what happened with the 22. We'll take a look.
I think we saw the 5 slow as well, so I think there was contact with the 5 of Mark Harris and the 22 of Schaefer. We'll get a look here, and it happened on the exit of the tunnel. You see right there, he's on the inside trying to see if he can make a pass up here. Tries to settle back in line. That's Tyler Murray behind him. He misses the corner just a bit. He runs the outside, and I think he's going to tag the wall. Indeed he does, and that's really it. But you saw, I think Murray had to take evasive action and got really far sideways. And I think there was a separate incident with Mark Harris because Harris was slow off the corner and losing some spots there. But we're right on board here from behind, and you see the 22 up the racetrack, and you just can't do much. And you see this save right here, able to keep it pointed in the right direction and continue going.
Nice, beautiful work from Tyler Murray there. We saw similar incident with Craig Launslager that I believe brought out our first caution of the night, in which he saved the race car, getting around some trouble, and then reverted the car, got the gas back in, and it immediately snapped back to the right, which sent him into the outside wall, and then came to a halt, brought out that caution flag. Luckily for Murray, he's able to keep the car under control by the time he merged back to the racing surface. So we will stay green, although Murray is going to have to trade off some track position. Watch this, 3 wide, almost in the tunnel turn. That's Peel on the very inside. Joe Sanchez not too far ahead. And it is still Hornets Nest. A lot of these drivers trying to figure out their positions. And again, Francisco, a lot of these competitors here in the mid-pack Well, a lot of the drivers, a good pluck of them, that were up running for the lead, so they want to go back up to the very front, commanding this race. And now we got a car on the inside wall. That's Brian Smith.
Another incident for the 78. No caution to this moment, but it looks like he might have had an incident off of turn 3, and he slammed the pit wall there, and it looks as though we're going to stay under the green flag. We're going to look and see exactly what happened, but you caught it there on the camera. There's the 78 of Smith. He's right behind the 99 of Forrester, in front of the 64 of Scott Healy, so I'm not sure which side of this may have provoked the incident. It looks as though it may have happened on the exit of 3, and you see him stack up a little bit in front of him. He's looking to the inside of Forrester, and I think actually he's going to tag the wall on his own.
Did it all by himself, and then immediately alt F4 by the time he knew he was in trouble. And for Brian Smith, unfortunate for the driver who was just trying to recoup off of the first crash with Colin Forrester in the tunnel turn. What a bizarre race it's been from the tricky triangle thus far.
Yeah, it's been a lot, like we talked about, a lot of attrition in this race. We normally see attrition at Pocono, Kenneth, but I think we haven't exactly seen a race with this much attrition at this racetrack before. It's making things very live, and we might open up opportunities for guys at the end of this one just to have a chance. You see Cody Kinsey still with that damage that he got in one of those early cautions, trying to save that fast repair for the very end, and he's just trying to hold on right to this point with Danny Michel behind him and Colin Forrester.
So Smith out of this race. He becomes the second DNF tonight after Austin Bloom. We're going to try and dig deep on what happened to the 2-car because we did not cover the full story on what happened there to his machine. But Bloom out of this race. He's in the garage. Now Smith is out as well, becomes the second car out. And we've almost had a third one. That's Lawson Peel there in trouble out of turn 3.
You see the car squiggling. He's got some right front damage. I think maybe a similar incident that happened to Smith. I think he may have tagged the wall there off of turn 3 and a bunch of spots lost and right front damage on his race car. You see it right there. A little bit of a crinkle on the right side, just the edge of the hood there. He's going to get sideways at the exit of turn 1, able to keep it going, and Peel's not having a good time. We'll see if we can look at what happened to him in turn 3.
And now we're starting to see the effect of what I mentioned earlier, Francisco. The fact that a lot of drivers, when you push out in the corner, car gets understeer and smacks the outside wall. We're seeing many of the best doing that so far here, well past halfway of this Pocono race for round 7 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. But it's all Kyle Benson up at the front. 1.2 seconds between himself and AJ Green. We've got a battle around the top 10. That's Cody Kinsey, who was working to the inside, I believe, of Dave Bush. Was able to hold him off, and Dave Bush holding on for 9th will give him the bump back to turn 1.
So I was able to look at what happened to the 2 of Bloom. It looks like he was running fine, and then all of a sudden just fell out of the session. It says he manually disconnected, Kenneth, but he was running there, battling for position, when all of a sudden he just left. So it looks like issues there for the 2 car, unfortunately unable to continue, by no means of a damaged race car or anything like that. So it's very tough for the 2 of Bloom. He suffered a couple of these instances last season. It looks as though they're repeating themselves here today. So Smith looks to be the first car out with actual trouble out on the racetrack, and alting and F4ing, knowing he was going to get some damage after using that fast repair, decided not to stay. And we have I believe it is Cody Neal that is running 6 laps down in 31st. Still shrouding here tough. You see him right there with some damage on that race car based off the RFK Racing paint that the Brad Keselowski runs. 6 laps down in 31st. I think he's hoping that the attrition continues at this rate, and all the guys who've used fast repairs can't finish the race, and he can gain all those spots up.
And that will help. And of course, being really one of the only drivers multiple laps down on the racetrack that's still out there, he can get those waiver rounds if more cautions wave here from Pocono, so that could help him get back into contention. That's on board with Scott Healy, the 64, going to the inside. That's Curtis Kelly on the very top. This is a pass, or aiming to be completed, for what is going to be 3rd on the racetrack, but Curtis Kelly holding out strong. Now this time going to back out entrance of turn 3. Healy will have the advantage, so move the 64 into 3rd, trying to catch up to 2nd, who will be AJ Green. Of course, all of them trying to chase down the 10 of Kyle Benson, who currently occupies the control of this race. And also to note that the comment about Cody Ivy was made by Cody Ivy in the YouTube chat, so appreciate you watching, Cody. Of course, all that you do for the 4-Wide Racing Series and being a part of the field, and it sucks that you're not part of the race here tonight hopefully we'll see it next week by the time we head to the National Park of Speed in Road America just to 1 week time. As you watch Daniel Micho go way wide, exit turn 1, and that opens the door for Colin Forrester to maybe take fourth away.
Forster's looking to the inside, and Forster's been fast at the start of this season. He's definitely shown some good pace, but hasn't been able to pick up that win that I'm sure he's been looking forward to. He's seen some of his teammates have some really good runs, especially AJ Green in that championship defense. I think Forster's kind of been anticipating a little bit more, and having it knocked on his way, maybe momentum's just not on his side. I think if he's able to have a good enough run and capture that win he's been looking for, I think he could turn this stuff around. In the next portion of the schedule, we alluded to the road courses. He's really good at those road courses as well. So if he gets a race where there's no Brian M. Smith, or I don't know, maybe puts in some work and is able to kind of match him at tracks like Road America, tracks like COTA, which we haven't seen in 4 wide yet, then just maybe he'll be able to compete at least there for a race win or two.
No doubt. We'll have to see as Scott Healy goes to the inside. A big move, or at least rather some big moves here being made by Healy. He's been able to really pick off a lot of the drivers in front of him, and now he's only got one more left. Kyle Benson, he's got to close in about 1.8 seconds before he can try to make something happen for the race lead as we approach 30 laps to go for the virtual Pocono Raceway. And as we're under green for the first time in a while, we'll take a moment to step away, but you won't miss a thing here as we continue our coverage of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from Pocono in round number 7. Kyle Benson, your leader so far.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the virtual Pocono Raceway, where I have just jinxed the entire field. I mentioned before we went under that break that it was our first long green flag run in a very long time. And then immediately as we went to break, caution came out on courtesy of Curtis Kelly. It was contact between himself and Colin Forrester going into turn 1. Francisco, walk us through what happens here.
And we were looking at this while we were on break. It looks like Forster trying to make the move into 1. Kelly wasn't sure what he was going to do. Not sure if he wanted to stay in line or go to the inside, perhaps make the block or go for the pass on his own. And just as he pulled out, he checked up at the last second. Very briefly, but noticeably, Forster gets in the back of him, sends him into that Pocono wall, much like Jimmy Johnson did here in the past, Kenneth. And that was not an easy hit.
Yeah, that hurts for me as a Jimmy Johnson fan, but did happen back 2017. And it happens almost in the same manner. I think just less severity here for Curtis Kelly, fortunately, as he backed it down in enough time to still hit the wall, but not hit it as hard as he could have. You'll see, again, look at the replay. And we talked about it right on break before we came back, that Kelly He said he checked up and did that at the same time, but it just looked like he poked the nose out, was thinking about the pass until Forster went down, said, okay, now I'm going to go to block. And it just unfortunately gets the block running at the worst time. And then the slight contact happens, and when you're going that fast, upwards of 185 miles an hour, that is very hard to save. It is very hard to get back into the top 5 without crashing or at least hitting somebody. And that's a big hit for Curtis Kelly, who was running so well in this race via staying out with Kyle Benson. And speaking of, I believe Kyle Benson and company have hit pit roads. Pretty much everybody has hit pit road. AJ Green, now your race leader.
So those that pitted just now are banking on some yellows to try and make it to the end, because they're right there on the point of being able to make it. I think 28 or so is probably the likely window, and they pitted with about 31 to go. So they are hoping for more cautions here onto the end, maybe staying out the rest of the way, playing that track position game. So I think everybody who pitted now, for the most part, thinking long-term, trying to think for the end of the race, which is probably a good idea. But a couple of takeaways there from this caution, Kenneth, is number one, you pulled the double jinx. You were talking about Curtis Kelly before the break, and about 10-15 seconds after we did go on break, the caution comes out involving said Curtis Kelly. Another thing to point out is that we have a couple new cars here at the front, and as I mentioned with this strategy, and with AJ Green and a couple of these other guys staying out, I wonder what their play is here, because we've seen trouble happen towards the back end of the field with guys who have pitted when most of the field had stayed out, and it puts them back in harm's way as such, and they struggle to make that recovery. We're seeing that with the 12 of Peel. He's trying his best to work his way back up and hasn't exactly had the luck to do so. So if you're AJ Green or somebody else who may have stayed out here, like the 64 Healy, Forrester, Michel, I wonder what your game is here, if you know that being in the back, especially for the end of the race, that's not exactly where you want to be.
And no doubt about it, we've seen track position matter more than anticipated, and we talked about earlier the fact that when you have fresh rubber, it's not as easy to really pick through the field, and you kind of just remain stagnant if you don't try and push, if you don't just have that raw pace naturally. So we'll see what happens. AJ Green does have a little bit of front-end damage, but doesn't seem to be affecting his Camaro all too much. And so he will command the field back to Green alongside Scott Healy, who before that caution made the move on AJ Green for second and was trying to close in on your leader Kyle Benson at the time. Kyle Benson, aforementioned race leader, he now closes in the top 5. And also, we gave a little bit of a shout out there, Tyler Warner, looking at his new looking number 33, the Milwaukee Chevrolet Camaro. He's just outside of the top 10 on this restart. He's 11. Of course, good to see Jaden Gimbel on the YouTube chat. We hope to see you next week at Road America. Of course, I'd love to see all the guys from the 4Wide community step into the YouTube chat whenever they can, and obviously love to see them on the racetrack as well, running for wins. These two, very hungry for the win. We've got 30 laps to go here from the virtual Pocono Raceway. Pace car makes its way down, and it's a very solid jump for Stonks Motorsports on the inside lane. Colin Forster gives the push to AJ Green as Green clears the field back to turn 1.
I see a little bit of a block there on Colin Forrester. AJ Green makes the teammates trying to go to the top 2 spots. They got Scott Healy and Tyler Murray there. AJ Green actually up the racetrack. Michel up the racetrack as well. I think he'll stay out of the outside wall, and he might just hold position, and in fact he does in 5th. But Healy now up to the 3rd spot with Benson and 4th. They're going to try and pounce on the top 2 that are teammates, so don't look now, but these two that have battled for a championship, battled for multiple race wins against one another. They're going to see if they can work together to do this just once more.
Right on board with the 64 of Healy. This is him working at turn 3. Of course, Colin Forster was able to clear and make that pass complete for second. So Stonks Motorsports will occupy 1st and 2nd. Healy, the first one, obviously, to break that ship, or break that train up, rather, as we come across the line to lap number 63. We saw there on the restart into turn 1, Michel was just trying to use the grip up there when they treated this Pocono Raceway to have potential viable lines in that first corner. It kind of worked out for him as he holds on at 5th, but here comes a pass to the inside. Forrester on the bottom, AJ Green holding out up top, and they are door to door on the back straightaway.
He's not going to have any help, though. He's thinking about pulling in, but the 64 fills the gap, so Forster's going to lose the spot there. I think he'll stay ahead of Benson, it seems. Side by side for second. Forster puts it down on the inside. He still has the 64. Actually, no, he's going to clear Healy before the corner. I think Healy must have had a moment there, and actually he did, because right now he's under attack from Benson now for the 3rd spot. You see back there, Joe Sanchez now challenging Michel for the fifth position. So these two are battling behind the top two, but they're still pulling away from most of the field to this point in the race. You see now, I think 10 is going to pull in line and get in front of the 25. Indeed, he does. So now that puts Benson back into fourth, and he's going to try and see if he can continue to make an attack on your top three.
There's the gap also on the front straightaway between this car here, 6th place Joe Sanchez, and then 7th place Brandon Banks, who's leading a plethora of cars in that second group. Car right behind him, currently Dave Bush in the 50. Sanchez trying to make a move on the Los Angeles, California native in Michel. Just was not able to do it. He's going to hold in, stay behind by the time we get to the tunnel turn. So at this point in the race, maybe we can end up in a green flag run. I'm not going to say anything just yet, because I jinxed it right before we went to break, and I might have the opportunity to jinx it again, so I'm not going to try and do it. But, granted, one of these guys, final 30 laps, are you anticipating the same trends we've seen all race long, or do you think this is the breakout moment because of attrition?
And there was a moment there as soon as you were about to talk about no cautions where Joe Sanchez tagged the wall, so you had me going there for a moment. Forster goes to the inside of green for the lead. I think these guys have probably made their bed that I think it's just the fact that the race is going to have cautions from here on out. We could have a long run. That could still happen, but I don't foresee that being the case in this race. At least I wouldn't predict it that way, and I wouldn't run it based on that format. You see, actually, it looks like a car further in the back. I think that's Tyler Murray may have had an issue. He was slow on the long pond straightaway. You see right there, he has an issue, and also another car with an issue. That's Matt Roberts. So a couple things going on in the back. Just nothing necessarily to bring out a caution, but they're able to keep things pointed in the right direction.
And Matt Roberts got way out of shape there along with Curtis Kelly, and it was out of turn 1 that Murray lost the rear end of the race car. And same deal with Lawson Peel. Race has not gone smooth for him ever since. He's been near the rear of the field, but Murray, great save again. We talked about his save swerving out of trouble earlier on tonight. Just another masterclass job. Wheelman effort there from the 8TJ's team, Chevrolet Camaro, to keep his car moving very strongly. Pass for the race lead complete. Colin Forster moves up to the front and now bring in a battle for second. Here's help. Kyle Benson giving support to previous champion in the 4-Wide Cup Series, Scott Healy. Bit of contact there as they came out of the tunnel turn, but somehow they kept it clean.
That's what Forster wants to see. As long as they don't wreck, but they cost each other time, that's good enough for him. And a moment there for Adrian Green and Scott Healy. Very reminiscent to what we saw with Colin Forster and Brian M. Smith earlier in this race. You see Benson trying to make the move now. The 48 of AJ Green couldn't quite get there. He'll tuck in line, have some help from Joe Sanchez. You see these two trying to tag along as well, a little bit further back, trying to break away from the rest of the field. But Forster able to get out there, and look at those 4 cars up in the front trying to catch up. They were nose to tail, I think, right on each other's bumper going into turn 1. So it was very close. Lance Hill sliding up into the 7th position now ahead of Dave Bush, and he's going to try and see if he can catch up to your top 6.
Good move there. Textbook by Lance Hill into turn 1, but he's got a substantial deficit. Not as much help. Only 2 cars to give him chase. Of course, Dave Bush, the one he just got by, and Adam Alishar in the 14. And now you also got to think placement. This is going to matter here in the final, what's going to be now 25, under 25 laps of this race, the final 20 when we reach lap 70 officially at the start-finish line. You got to think about placement here because, of course, track position matters a lot. Very crucial, especially when cautions come out. But when you're on the racetrack going green, your placement, whether it's on the bottom or the top, is going to matter a lot. And there were snake trailing going into turn 1. And look at this. Healy moves to the inside for the lead as he bobbles over the bumps, and the car unsettles. Forster will hold on.
It was an optimistic dive, and he clipped the apron just a little bit and loose off the corner. It's going to cost him a couple of positions here. You see the 48 of Green goes by pushing his teammate. Looks like the 10 of Benson wants to get to the outside. I think he's there, so I think, no, actually, he was able to sell in the 3rd spot. He has to check up a little bit. Actually, no, that was the 48 of Green that had to check up off the corner as he almost gets into the wall behind your race leader. So an intense battle going up at the front of the field as we are getting closer to the end of the race, but not really able to make any moves. And, you know, that could be very due to the fact that the outside is just very dominant in holding position, as we've seen in this race. And look at
one
the
car
back,
on the wall.
Cars going around. Oh, we got one upside down.
That's Cody Kinsey up end over end. That's Kevin D'Elia in it.
Oh, watch it. Oh.
That is Michael Newbraw who tags the inside wall trying to get out of it. Dustin Webb very close.
Oh, my.
but the dust will settle. Caution out here, lap 69 of 90. And this was not a nice situation for Kinsey or anyone else involved as we take a look. And even in that far shot, Francisco, you saw the 93 tag the outside wall, and I wonder for a moment, is he able to keep it straight? Is he able to hold on to it? The answer, unfortunately, seemed to resolve as a big no. There's the hit to the wall. There's Prees, a couple of other cars. It's Brian Dixon, Kevin D'Elia, who ultimately gets into him. And that's a big flip on the front straightaway for the Quaker State Camaro.
I'm not sure if there was contact with that car in front of him to get him into the outside wall. It was the 13 of Lawson, so we're right on board. This is not going to be a pretty ride. And no contact, just tried to stay on the outside and drove it too hard. And right there, hard to the wall. Oh my, just track and sky and track again. And eventually the sky out of his windshield. Matt Roberts tried to avoid him, gets into the inside wall. We'll see in slow motion just how this happened, Kenneth. That was an impressive view, seeing that car go upside down the way it did. It's not really something you'd see. And actually a separate incident with Tyler Murray. I think he got loose off of turn 3 after seeing the smoke and all that I think he tried to check up and got loose on it on his own. So I don't think he hit anybody or anything, but that was something to note on board there with Roberts.
Well, look here with Murray, who was just in front. Actually, he lost the race car out of turn 3. By the time he noticed that there was trouble, smacked the outside wall just a bit.
Kelly did too.
Yeah, Kelly also did the same, but rather harmless for both of them. As Dustin Webb got very close, they were trying to merge back safely. Kevin D'Elia and Cody Kinsey, of course, not happy with what happened after what was an up-and-down race for both of them. Kevin D'Elia, of course, involved in an incident to start this race. Curtis Kelly involved in one in turn 1 with the 99 of Forster. They both got their faster pairs, were just trying to recoup what was lost in the first half of the event. And unfortunately, it has taken a very negative turn. So, field will come on a pit road. Colin Forster will lead the field down. Of course, I don't think anyone really second-guessing this. Actually, no. Joe Sanchez, Daniel Michel, that's Lance Hill. Maybe more. That's a total of 3 cars in the front pack that have decided to stay out. As there's a look at Forster and the rest of the field coming in.
And out of those cars that stayed out, only Danny Michel was the one who stayed out on the most previous caution prior to this one. So he's still on the oldest tires and the least amount of fuel on the racetrack. So his status on making it is still uncertain with the amount of laps he has left in his fuel tank. I think he still has to come down once more. But I think he's just trying to go for it, Kenneth. He doesn't have the lead. Of course, that belongs to the 55 of Joe Sanchez in front of him. See a lap car there. I believe that's Tyler Murray not Tyler Murray, the 11 of Austin Reedy getting laps back. So he's able to be back on the lead lap. So I think this is going to be interesting. We saw track possession is going to matter, and we talked about this under the last caution when the window was close to possibly being open. You could have assumed that there could have been more cautions. That's the way the race has gone. You probably would have wanted to pit there so you can be in the position Joe Sanchez is now with the lead and not having to come back down pit road, most likely because of the caution laps.
So out of the entire field, 10th on back, decided to pit. Of course, AJ Green was the one to lead the field out, so Forster goes -1 on that stop. Of course, not too big of a difference, just because I think they've got good placement here. 3 Stonks Motorsports teammates in Green, Forster, and Alashire. Of course, all of them a part of the Championship 5 last season at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And they're trying to get a race win here. AJ Green already victorious in the campaign at Richmond. Alashire has had some bad luck. He has yet to find his first checkered flag of 2022. Same deal for the 99 of Colin Forster, who I think we've seen become bridesmaids way too often in this series over the first 6 races. So with this stop, with the call out by Sanchez and company, Sanchez is the first one, so he will lead us theoretically back to green flag racing. Lights are out on the iRacing official pace cars, so we will go green with 19 laps to go. And now you got to think, Francisco, if you're the guys of Forster, AJ Green and company, do you worry in this position, or do you feel like the cars in front is not as heavy and you can kind of weather the storm and get back to the front in a relatively good amount of time?
The good thing that he has going for him is that he's not too far down the order. He's still in the top 10, so he doesn't have to pass too many people. but I wouldn't feel as safe as I would be if I were restarting in the first 2 rows where he previously would have been. And this is all obviously caused by the fact of the pit strategies and what cautions you decided to pit, which ones you didn't, and all that. And you can't really predict it that well when you have this many cautions. You can't just say, oh, it was this one that I should have pitted, or that one that I shouldn't have, or that sort of deal. When you have this many, it just happens to be the way it is. So it's very hard to get right. But whoever is out front at the end of the race, of course, most very bluntly, is going to be the one who wins the race. And right now, the best position is the 55 of Joe Sanchez. I think he might have enough fuel now to make it to the end of the race after these caution laps. You can never be too sure. I think he'll keep saving between now and the end of the race. But I think if we get into overtime range, Kenneth, I think it'll be very close for the guys who pitted with about 30 laps to go. But everybody who came down pit road, so everybody who's currently 10th on back, they're good to go regardless.
Got to keep that in mind for the end of this race. Going to go to the final 18 laps of this race from the virtual Pocono Raceway. So not 19 to go, it'll be 18 to go with Joe Sanchez, Daniel Michel at the head of the field. Also to note, third DNF of the night, Kevin D'Elia in the 53. Green flag back in the air once again. Sanchez off to a gorgeous start. Daniel Michel was absolutely left in the dust, and everybody will go to the outside. They acknowledge it. Going into turn 1, not a lot of cars side by side. Sanchez single file leads them through.
Forster was making it 3 wide further back on the inside, trying to make up some positions. You see cars drifting up the racetrack off of turn 1. We got one in the wall. It looks like it's Dustin Webb in that Castro car. He's got cars going around him. Forster's made some spots up. I think he's up to 7th.
A lot of good position makeup there. Jesse Prees, notable driver here. CJ Munier also in it as well. A lot of competitors here that are starting to put their name into the competition. We haven't really heard of them all night long. But it's all Joe Sanchez at the front of the field trying to command them this time. It'll be 17 laps to go. And look who's in the running for the lead. Eric Schaefer, not too far behind in the draft.
Trying to see if he can make a presence late in the running here. He's been good with this next-gen car. We'll see what he's able to do here. You see cars behind him. Munier's going to dive to the inside, try to go for the pass. I don't think it's going to work out, and Lance Hill's going to try and pounce.
Lance Hill going to try to make the move, and we saw him get over Dave Bush. I believe they made the pass complete in that second group of drivers trying to catch up to at least the top 4, top 5. And Hill has a segue here to potentially get up to the top 2 as they are all about nose to tail. Also update, AJ Green still in 10th, still trying to claim in. Colin Forster has moved up to 8th, so got by a good chunk of the mess. But now he's got a lot of drivers up in front that he has to beat. And now here comes Schaefer inside for first.
Trying to see he can go to the inside of Sanchez, pinching him hard, and he's going to have help from Lance Hill. Hill's trying to get to the outside. I think he's there, and he's going to push the 55 on the straightaway and help him get clear. So move Lance Hill now up to second. But look at that mess at the top of your screen.
Everybody fanning out, of course, not for the race lead, not for substantial positions within the top 10, top 15, but everybody behind just trying to get as much as they can. Look on the rearview camera of Dave Bush. That's how many cars there are fighting for position. And by the way, most of them, or pretty much all of them, are on the lead lap. Tyler Murray loses the car out of turn 1, but no harm, no foul. Will stay green as Lounslugger looks to the inside of Alshire for 14th.
And I think the most important factor is you said they're all in the lead lap, so they're all battling each other for points for position. And look at the 50th Bush sideways into the wall. Again goes Webb. I think they might keep it pointed in the right direction. Indeed, they do. So we stay green, but another close call with these guys in the back.
Of course, another one there, but we will stay green. Unfortunate for Dave Bush, who was doing so well up until this point. Look back at the battle for your top 3, and actually look a little bit further behind, and that's Colin Forster. Help here from Scott Healy into turn 1, so Forster will bring Healy up to 8th. Forster moves up to 7th, but he's got a lot of good stuff up in front of him. A front row ticket to what's going on. And now you got to think, if Lance Hill wants to make a move, what does he do? Outside, inside, where does he go?
Well, we know the bottom is struggling to work, so I think you have to bait Sanchez into snake trailing you. And right now he hasn't done so. You see as they go over through those bumps there in the tunnel turn. If he can bait the 55 into snake trailing, we saw how Forster took the lead from, or actually how Joe Sanchez took the lead from Brian M. Smith earlier in the race. You bait him into the snake trail, you get to the outside, and you force them to run the bottom. So I think that's the way to go, but I don't think Joe Sanchez is willing to snake trail at this point, knowing that that's how he took the lead away.
Of course,
So
has
Hill's
the
gonna go
knowledge,
there.
but Hill's going to go to the inside, so he's going to be the lone patron on the bottom. No help from Schaefer as Schaefer stays neutral here in this situation. Sanchez will run wide out of turn 1. It'll reel Schaefer back in, who's in third, but Schaefer going to assist the fellow Chevrolet Camaro behind him, and Hill left in the dust. He'll fall back to third.
I just lose too much momentum off the corner, and a car fills the gap as soon as you think about moving back up, and that's going to cost Hill. Now he's going to be under fire from the 25, so he's going to regroup and try to make a charge again. But right now it's next man up. Eric Schaefer is trying to see if he can mount a challenge for the race lead. We'll see if those guys on those newer tires further back are able to catch up. I think if this race goes green, it's actually in their best interest if that's the case. But if we get late enough and they don't make the right moves and get by, example, the 76 of Tony Kibbett, I think you're going to look at a potential caution for these guys to have help. But with 13 laps to go, 13 is still a decent ways away. They're only about 2.5 seconds behind the leader. So if they're able to get by the 76 quickly, they still have a shot if this goes green.
And that word you said, quickly, very important, very pertinent in this conversation here, as Healy will dive down to the inside. He's got the nose of the corner panel now to the door, going into the tunnel turn. And this is a pass for the entrance into the top 5. Of course, Healy trying to bring in the likes of Colin Forster and AJ Green into the battle here. Forster and Green will have a compromising spot trying to catch up to Kibbett on the outside there of turn 2. But again, they're all looking ahead at this top 4 who have been reeling in each other lap after lap, and nobody really wants to make a move. This time, Schaefer still pondering the decision. That's the thing, Francisco. It's kind of like a play race. You need help if you want to make a move down low or up top. You cannot make these moves all by yourself unless you really make a send for it. And like we've seen earlier on tonight, if you push the limits of this car a little bit too much, this car will not follow, and this car will snap and send you into the wall faster than you think.
But watch that. You saw he did a good job of backing up the corner. He's going to have a run here. It kind of stalled out as he got close to the rear bumper, and now I don't think it's probably the best idea to make a move in the tunnel turn. He didn't keep the momentum that we saw there on the corner exit up. He's going to try and look around the outside. He's trying different things. He's trying to look elsewhere to see what he can do. Almost get to the outside wall. It's going to allow Lance Hill to get right on his bumper and actually give him the push going down the short chute and into turn 3, and you see the wheel at work here on board with Lance Hill as we approach 11 laps to go in this race. And they're fighting this to the very end, and I think Scott Healy is starting to catch up to the tail end of the group to Danny Michaud as he shifts up into the 5th gear. And there you see the 64 of Healy. He's actually up there starting to make ground up on them. He's about 1.5 seconds off. If those behind him can get by and kind of help assist in pushing the 64, Arrow pushing the 64 up there, he might just catch their draft.
And Healy making insane progress here in this last run, but you gotta wonder if there's enough time left for Healy to obviously catch up and then have to make the pass, because it's not just one car he's getting around, it's 4. So he's got to also think about that as well. And then you also got to come into the factor that Forster, AJ Green, they've got a teammate up there that they can help if it comes down to it in Lance Hill, who's pretty much stranded on an island as Daniel Michaud almost poked his nose to the bottom for 3rd.
Yellow's
so
out.
when they catch up, but a caution comes out with 11 laps to go. And it is, I believe, Jacob Smith. There he is, back straight away. Car is beached and torn up. And Smith brings out a caution with 10 laps to go.
I believe he got on the outside wall, Kenneth, and that's what set him off. I think also, just as he was coming back down the racetrack, perhaps gets clipped by the 33. And as he almost hits the inside wall, comes out the racetrack, and you saw right there, unfortunately, into the path of, I believe that was Brian Dixon. See right there, he looked like the 03 was gonna miss it if he stayed next to the wall like he was running, but I believe he thought that Jacob Smith would go all the way back up the racetrack and turn down in hopes of avoiding him up there. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case and turned right into him. But all that does is that puts everybody now in the hot seat. Do you come down pit road? Do you stay out? I think, honestly, with what we've seen, I think you have to stay out. But if you're further back, if you're guys in outside of the top 10, outside of the top 15, you don't lose anything in coming down pit road because you're not exactly in position to do anything at this current moment in time. But I think if you're in the top 10, you have to stay out.
So it's deal or no deal, a big game of questions here. They'll come out of turn 3, and then we'll have our deciding moment, whether our leaders will come in, whether they'll fake, or whether they're just going to make their case known and say, I'm not coming down. I want the track position. I want to win this race more than anything else. So we'll take a look at pit road. Sanchez, Hill on the drivers to fake for now, but they'll come in. Scott Healy will stay out on the racetrack. I think we had one driver in Eric Schaefer hold out hope by his lonesome. But a very interesting call here, Francisco. Pretty much everybody in that main pack have come in.
That's very interesting. I didn't exactly foresee this. And not to mention that not only was it the leaders that came in, a lot of the field has come in. I think they all wanted to definitely make sure they're good on fuel, but I think primarily tires. But I think one thing that we haven't talked about, it's not just that you come in at all, it's what do you do now? I think a lot of guys might do some 2-tire calls, especially if you're in the middle of the group that came down pit road. You might take some 2 tires just to gain some track position. You see one car is going to exit right there, and that's actually Sanchez. So I think everybody actually took 4 of those that came in if Joe Sanchez was exiting first. But now that puts those in the front in the hot seat. But it's just a handful of laps left. Eric Schaefer is going to stay out. He's going to be the race leader. Scott Healy's going to be in second. I think things are going to kick off here with less than 20 miles to go.
This is going to be insane as Eric Schaefer stays out. And you are right, Francisco. Not a lot of drivers electing for 2 tires or less. Most of the field going for 14 and a half, 15-second brackets on their pit stops. So obviously 4 tires in field. That's what they want to the end. And that's obviously what they're going to need, most likely in the tire case, if they want to grip themselves up back to the front of the field. They're going to have a lot of cars to get around, though, because Schaefer stayed out. Scott Healy did the same, but then you look third on back, and there are a lot of drivers who kind of struggled near the latter half of this race that have now found a last-ditch hope to win this race. Tony Kivitt being one of them. Craig Lumslugger, who now lines up as 4th. He brought out the first yellow tonight, by the way, in the first couple laps. Austin Reedy has been up and down on the running charts, and he almost got lapped at one point in this race, but he's back to 5th. Kyle Benson, who has been strong, he's also moved up and down the order quite a few times tonight. He's now in P6. Cody Kinsey, the Quaker State car, has been pretty much through everything you can imagine. Got his faster pair, held on to it, and he is 7th. Michael Newbraw is 8th. And then it's Joe Sanchez and company, all of the drivers who came in on that recent yellow, looking to get by all the madness and make a magic moment happen here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. So we'll stack them up, we'll double them up, and we'll have a restart with 7 laps to go. Eric Schaefer, who stayed out, is your leader. Scott Healy, who's been hard charging all night long, he's 2nd. Tony Kivitt 3rd. Craig Lumslugger 4th. Kyle Benson into your top 5. Austin Reedy is 6th, 7th to Cody Kinsey, Michael Newbraw, Joe Sanchez, and Lance Hill to your top 10. So, Francisco, we've seen a lot of chaos, a lot of cautions, a lot of torn-up race cars. What are the thoughts here with 7 to go?
I think we might see a lot of chaos. We've already seen chaos through this race, but I think we're not done with the chaos. We have late race restarts, differing tire strategies. I think we still have a caution or 2 left in it at least before the dust settles here. Eric Schaefer trying to see if he can finally capture that win. We'll see if he can get it done. He's going to have to hold off a champion of the series to do so. We're going to wish him luck. And before we go green, Kenneth, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but it looks as though your Miami Heat have lost tonight against my Golden State Warriors.
Oh, that's tough. Well, I'll deal with the copage a little bit later on tonight after this one is done. We've got a lot more developments, though, still happening with only 7 laps to spare. Eric Schaefer going to have discretion on this restart. He will have Tony Kivitt behind him to support. And now we got to wonder, does Healy keep up or does he fall back when we go green? We'll have to find out. 7 laps to go on this restart. Pace car is down. We're back under green, and Healy is able to maintain with Schaefer. They're about to be door-to-door going into turn 1.
And Schaefer's trying to make sure that Healy can't side draft, but Healy did so anyway. Now he has the advantage going into turn 1. The 22's going to dive it in, and he's going to actually take the lead away. And look at this action. The 76 trying to go up the middle. He has some newer tires. He's trying to pounce on these guys, and it would not surprise me if there's a wreck off of turn 1. Cars are everywhere, 3 and 4 wide. wide.
We saw 3 wide, a couple of rows deep. Here's 3 wide again. Caution, though, comes out before we can continue our run. Matt Roberts involved, Dustin Webb to a complete halt on the back straightaway underneath the dashed yellow lines. And I imagine the wreck to happen in the mid-pack of the field because everybody was 3-4 wide, fanning out after turn 1. But it was an incident between these two that brings us under rest once more. And there were actually 3 wide behind. That's Jacob Smith. Very deep on the inside in turn 1. Dustin Webb in the middle. Dave Bush on the top. And then here comes Roberts in it. I think Bush, actually no, there was contact with Webb and Smith, which kind of is the catalyst of all of this. And then Matt Roberts, the lone bystander, nowhere he could go. And he gets involved in another crash.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for those two. They haven't exactly had the best of days. But what that does, Kenneth, it's going to re-rack the field once more. It's just exactly what we need. And you see right there, a little bit of contact sends the 27 to the 1, back down in front of the 16, and they do almost some synchronized spinning there. And they're both back on pit road, unfortunately, having to make repairs. But that was a huge restart for both of those in the front row. Healy got a really good restart. Almost had an opportunity to take the lead, but the 22 crucially made a huge dive and it stuck. He was able to get clear again before they exited turn 1 and held the lead all the way through. So he's got another opportunity, try and get a better restart to make sure he's clear before turn 1 to try and give himself a better opportunity. Kenneth, that was very close, but we saw a lot of 3 and 4 wide action in the middle back portion of the restart. We saw guys on the newer tires really trying to take advantage of it. You got Austin Reedy now up in 3rd. Craig Lautenschlager is down there in the 4th position as well. Kyle Benson's not too far off. Joe Sanchez, who was leading this race earlier, you see him right there. I believe he's on the backside of the top 10 in the 9th position. We're going to see what these guys are able to do, but of course they don't want to sit here under caution, running caution laps. That's just going to give them less opportunities to go up there and race for the win. I'm not sure if we'll get the 1 to green this time. They are looking like they're going to double up this time. We'll see if the lights go out on the pace car, and it looks as though they have. You see right there, they just turned off. So we're going to have a restart with 4 laps to go. About 10 miles left in this race, Kenneth, at least in the scheduled distance. I think we could very easily see some extra mileage.
We are probably going to see green-white checkered restarts very near in our future. We do need a yellow to start all of that off, and that hasn't happened yet. But with the way we saw that restart happen out of turn 1, it could be imminent, and it could happen very, very soon. Also to note, that move on the inside by Reedy to put him 3rd, an insane job. He dove it inside 3 wide, put Tony Kibbett in the sucker hole in the middle. And so Tony Kibbett falls back to 5th, and Austin Reedy trades places with him. He's going to now assist the 64 of Scott Healy when we get back to green flag racing. So we'll have a restart. 4 laps to go. Schaefer, your leader. Healy, 2nd. Austin Reedy, Craig Lautenschlager to your 2nd row. Tony Kibbett, your top 5. And the last driver in it, Cody Kinsey, is P6. Kyle Benson is 7th. Michael Newbrow is 8th. Joe Sanchez, first driver on the newest tires in the field. He is 9th. Adam Alashire for Stonks Motorsports. He racks up the top 10. Also to mention, barely any of these guys near the front have a win this season. Eric Schaefer hasn't been able to do it despite some very good runs. Scott Healy also in that list. Same deal for Lautenschlager. Same deal for Cody Kinsey, for Tony Kibbett, for Kyle Benson. Austin Reedy is the only one within the top 5 to have a win this season. Of course, that one came at the first race of the campaign at Daytona. So here we go. Final 4 laps of action here from Pocono. It's been a rather cloudy day, but the lightning is starting to strike. Eric Schaefer and Scott Healy, your first 2 on the front row. Wait for the pace car to dive down. Schaefer is going to be the first one on the throttle. We're back to green. Could this be the final restart?
It's probably not, but look at that great restart by the 22 Schaefer. There it is. The crash is happening.
Austin Reedy around. Tony Kibbett also in it as well. Caution flag immediately rises up after about probably 400 feet of green flag racing. And Austin Reedy, we mentioned the move he made this time, I believe got caught up in the mess. We'll see what happened as Reedy had made the restart from 3rd. I believe Tony Kibbett had been the driver to really return the favor here. Reedy did it last restart. Kibbett was trying to do it this time around. But unfortunately, it stacks everybody up and brings a very interesting case. They're about 3 wide. and then give it the slight contact, sends Reedy sideways, and around they both go.
That's unfortunate for both of those guys. Reedy with the strong comeback and Kivett having a good run, one that he really could have needed. And right here on the restart, the 76 tries to go somewhere else and tries to come back up, but he doesn't realize that he's not clear. Slight contact sends them both out of control. And they were both very active in the watch. And actually look back there, CJ Munier, very, very strange what happened there. Having his own incident, but he's going to have some damage on his race car. I'm not sure what that was. I saw it at the last second, but I don't think anybody hit him. And it looks like we're stopping.
Yeah, I believe this was slow motion for a couple of seconds, but everybody's waiting for the pace car.
I heard red flag over the voice channel.
Oh, maybe. We'll wait and watch. Pace car will go by, and he'll pick up the field, so Schaefer and company will go back up. They'll wait, and now they'll pick things up again. Austin Reedy, by the way, just to note, is obviously falling back with that incident. He's 22nd, and he did make a stop on pit road to get some of that Chevrolet Camaro fixed. CJ Munier, I believe, did the same here, and I think Francisco, in the case of that 89, it was just going through the gears, maybe downshifted, maybe had an incident there as he was going up through first, second, third. Of course, a lot of these drivers starting in second. And maybe just a problem on the gearbox there going up to speed for the driver of the 89. And he will make a second trip down to pit road, another driver in to follow as well. So you were not wrong, Francisco. We had at least a caution or two waiting for us. And now what this does is puts us in a green, white, checkered territory.
Indeed, we're in the overtime range now, so not surprising considering the way the race has gone, but now it's about nailing the restart and holding off the field. This is the position that Eric Schaefer has wanted to be in, Kenneth. This is the opportunity he's been wanting to have, being the lead at the end of the race with you at the control of what happens to you. That's all you could ask for in an opportunity to win a race. You want to have the lead and you control your destiny, and that's what the 22 is going to be doing. He controls what happens to him at this point. Everybody's basically on equal tires with the amount of cautions and with all the heat cycles in them and all that. It's going to be fair game from here on out. He's going to have a couple of challenges here from several cars, but we'll see if he can hold on. But how about Cody Kinsey, Kenneth? He's had some troubles here today, sitting in the 4th spot. How about that?
A beautiful comeback it's been for the Quaker State car in the Quaker State. I talked about it a little bit earlier, the reference there, not only with the brand, with their products, but obviously Pennsylvania known as the Quaker State. And they called this race the Quaker State 500. I think when USAC and IndyCar ran here, obviously I believe there was also the sponsor Quaker State that hopped on board to sponsor these races at some point in history. But Quaker State, of course, synonymous with the state, synonymous with Pocono Raceway and its history here. And we'll see if Cody Kinsey can make history and become the first Quaker State car to get to victory lane in 2022 here from Pocono in the Quaker State. Now the thing is here, last season, when we took a trip here to Pocono, we had a green flag run, then the caution came out, probably around 5 laps to go. We had a restart in this similar fashion, but we only had one attempt. And now I wonder if we're going to have more, because Joey Ray led the field to green. It was clean, really, at that point, and then it stayed clean up until the checkered flag. Does it happen here, or do we see another pileup before it's all over?
I think it's 50-50. I think they both have an equal chance of either finishing off in this attempt or just as likely to have another caution. But I think considering how early this crash happened, I think, well, at least get out of turn 2. I would like to think we get out of turn 2. If Schaefer's going to be racing towards that white flag, hoping that he has a big enough lead and that everybody starts crashing after he takes the white flag to ensure that he has a race win at hand. He's got to nail the restart. He has to make sure he gets clear of the 64. If he can do it like he did last time and actually can put it into good use, I think he'll be safe.
So Schaefer again will command the field. He'll have help from Kinsey this time by, and it'll be a Toyota Camry behind Scott Healy, Craig Lautenslager. And so that will be our arrangement. The first 2 rows, Schaefer had a decent restart last time by, was trying to escape all the chaos, and it happened 3rd on back. And Schaefer's just hoping this one stays green, and obviously that he stays ahead of the Nike car that's been so strong all race long. Scott Healy has kept that car clean, remarkably so, even with the chaos we've seen tonight. He just wants to complete what's been a very solid race from start to finish. He's going to hope to finish it with his first checkered flag of 2022. Also a reminder, if we get a yellow before the leader reaches the white flag, we'll double them up and do it again. We have a couple of attempts to get this race finished. If not, and if we exhaust all of them, we'll end this race under yellow. But of course, we're looking for the moment that the leader gets to the white flag and we get a green flag race to the end. Pace car is down. Eric Schaefer is up and away. We're back under green with only a couple of miles left. Here from the Pocono Raceway, a good restart by Eric Schaefer gets him clear to turn 1.
And Kinsey's going to be side by side with Healy for second. If he can stay on the outside, that will be huge for the 22 of Schaefer. Even with the front end damage, Kinsey's really making it work, and he's going to stay to the outside.
Not as chaotic this time out of turn 1, so I believe we will stay green. Kinsey has some draft help. Healy is forced to tuck in behind as Schaefer tries to hold on into the tunnel turn. They're 3 wide.
They're 3 wide. That's Peel up the racetrack. I think he keeps it off the wall. A couple cars bouncing off. It looks as though there's several cars potentially going for a disaster, but they're all pointed in the right direction. We're coming to the white flag. It's all about reaching the line. There's some 4 wide further back. Eric Schaefer racing to this white flag. You see the field scrambling behind him. The race is official. 1 lap to go. He's leading against Cody Kinsey. He's got Scott Healy down in 3rd. Healy's going to make the move. I think they're going to be 3 wide. Not really. Healy with the big dive.
Almost 3 wide there. Kinsey got hip checked and Healy tried to make the send. He makes it work. Kinsey loses control there at the exit of turn 1. Schaefer almost struck the outside wall. And here comes Scott Healy. A final attempt to take away the race lead. And Eric Schaefer, we've wondered many times when he was going to get to victory lane after many times where he had struggled to get there at the end. Healy's going to try one more time, but if they come out of turn 3 clean, Schaefer will get his first win of 2022. 1 car up and over, barrel rolling at the exit of the tunnel turn, but out of turn 3, drag race to the start finish line. Schaefer, Healy 1-2, Sanchez is in the back wrecking, but Eric Schaefer wins from Pocono.
A great job by Eric Schaefer, Kenneth. He put himself in position. He played the track position game, and he stayed out there when it mattered most. We saw he was doing good on those restarts, and there was just enough racing between Healy and Kinsey to which it looked as though that it bought him enough time. And it looked like Kinsey almost blew up off of turn 1. You saw some dark smoke there, not really tire track smoke, maybe some engine smoke, and I thought he blew up, to be honest with you, but he came back strong. We did it again in turn 2, almost wrecked, but was able to keep it pointing in the right direction. And here comes everybody now, giving the congratulations. Owen Peel's going to spin in front of him, but I don't think that Eric Schaefer's going to mind that too much. He's going to be one ecstatic man to be celebrating victory. And just considering how close he came at Richmond last season, Kenneth, leading on the final lap. He's going to get hit right there, leading on the final lap of Richmond, and does not come away with the win as these guys are wrecking after the checker. But I think he'll be very happy about this one.
I think this damage he doesn't care about. As long as it's after the race, he's all good. Eric Schaefer, the 22 car, gets to victory lane for the first time this season. And the many moments that we remember of this driver right here, just how close he's been to winning. And just either he gets into a crash, he gets hit somewhere, something doesn't go his way. But finally, Eric Schaefer, despite all the obstacles, is able to surge ahead to hold off Scott Healy at the start-finish line, and he wins tonight from Pocono. There are a couple of drivers to celebrate with him. Jesse Prees, Lawson Peel. There's Cody Kinsey, who came in a remarkable 4th-place finish, as he was basically sideways the entire last lap. There's Michael Newbraw, Adam Alishire, Jacob Smith doing burnouts. But Eric Schaefer is the man of the hour as he wins for Pocono. We'll wait for him to burn it down. And there it is. Eric Schaefer, the winner.
Oh, wow. It's definitely very fun when you're able to get your first win, Kenneth. Regardless of circumstance, you hope you were the car to beat. You hope it was as good as possible. But I think in a moment like this, Schaefer, in a green-white checkered, I think he'll take it knowing that he had to hold off a series champion to be able to pull this off. There's some bragging rights in that. Being able to hold off one of the best in Scott Healy. He's been able to do it multiple times. And I can't wait to hear from him here in just a couple of moments to see what he thinks about finally getting that chip off his shoulder and coming home with a race win. You see, this restart was a huge part in him being able to get the win. He was able to get that launch. Healy couldn't exactly time it as good as he did with 8 or so laps to go in the race. And Kinsey got a good enough restart to where he was able to stay side by side with the 64 and move up in the second and really challenge him and allowed the 22 to kind of think of what's going on and be able to make the right moves to defend.
See the great restart there by Schaefer to clear. I think this is the biggest moment. That's the winning moment right there, Francisco. The ability to surge ahead so that Cody Kinsey keeps Scott Healy at bay, at least for a little bit, because that probably was the move that made the difference between winning and losing this race. Because if Healy had stayed ahead of this 93, it probably would have been a very tough situation for Schaefer in order to play more defense. But because Kinsey was kind of there as the pick in the middle, Healy had to wait another lap, had to wait longer in order to get around this 93, and in turn gave enough time for Schaefer to hold on and win this race. And it gets very dramatic near the rear of the field because we saw a car barrel rolling on the front straightaway somewhere, or I believe it was out of turn 2. You see there were about 3 wide, almost 4 wide there going into the corner. There's Colin Forster down low. Kyle Benson way out of shape. His car goes all out of whack and spins out by its lonesome in turn 1. And then it's just everything from the tunnel turn on back. There's 3 wide right here as Forster goes down low. It just does not get clean after this, quite frankly.
Yeah, the whole last lap was a mess, and you see right there, a hard hit to the outside wall for AJ Green. The track gets blocked for a brief second. How about Forster's ability to get through that? You see Lance Hill, unfortunately, in the air. You see a hard hit to the inside wall, goes on his side, barrel rolling a couple of times on the front straightaway or on the back straightaway there on the short chute. Lands on his wheels and he's able to drive it back and spinning like a top in turn 3 is Joe Sanchez on the final lap. Just before the finish, unable to get the result he wanted. He'll finish a lap down because of the fact that he could not complete that lap. So he lost at least 20 points or so just on that final lap. But the man of the hour, the man of the day, the man of the race is your race winner, Eric Schaefer.
And he stops on the start-finish line in fitting fashion. Eric Schaefer, your winner here tonight from Long Pond, Pennsylvania, in round 7 of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series. As we'll take a look at your full field rundown, we'll see where every single driver finished. Of course, Eric Schaefer, first win of 2022. We'll talk to him in a couple of moments alongside your top 3. Scott Healy, so close, but yet so far to the win. Adam Alishire picks up what was kind of a soft race to start. He finishes 3rd. Cody Kinsey, miraculous jump to the end there after what was a chaotic race for him in the 93. He comes home 4th. Michael Newbrock, give him credit for being in this fight as well with Cody Kinsey. He finishes inside the top 5. Lawson Peel had struggled in the latter half of the race after being stuck in the mid-pack on a tire strategy, although he rebounds for 6th. Colin Forster made a 3-wide move going to the final lap in the tunnel turn. He survived all of the mayhem. He is 7th. Tony Kivitt survives for P8. Jesse Prees, a very quiet night for the 00. He rounds out the top 9. And league owner Tyler Murray can countless amount of times he was sideways on the racetrack and saved it. And he drifts that car to a top 10 tonight.
In the 11th position is the 50 of Dave Bush, who had troubles late and was able to recover for a solid finish. Jacob Smith, involved in several incidents, comes away with a P12. Curtis Kelly had a strong run, not as strong of a finish, but comes away with a 13th place finish. Tyler Warner down in 14th. Brandon T. Banks, a quiet night, comes away with a top 15 finish. Craig Blonslaughter was involved in that chaos on the final lap off of turn 2, finishes in 16th. Austin Reedy down in 17th. Christopher Bishop in 18th with CJ Munier down in 19th, and AJ Green rounds out the top 20 after being involved in a last lap crash.
Tough for AJ Green. Same deal for Matt Roberts, Lance Hill, Kyle Benson, Daniel Micha. I mean, the list continues to go on. A lot of these drivers collected in crashes on the final laps. Matt Roberts had struggled tonight all race long. Lance Hill, of course, you saw in the replay, went barrel rolling there out of the tunnel turn. Kyle Benson had spun by himself out of turn 1 on the white flag. Daniel Michel comes home 24th, also gets involved in a crash. It was a solid night for the California native all race long, just did not culminate in the final laps on the restart. Joe Sanchez overcorrected the car in turn 3, went hard into the safety barrier. He lands 25th and is the first car 1 lap down. Then goes Mark Harris, 5 laps down. Dustin Webb in 27th, 7 laps down. Brian Dixon, Cody Neal, and Kevin D'Elia rounding out your top 30. Final drivers in the field include Brian M. Smith, who had crashed twice, and Austin Bloom, the first DNF in this race, rounds out a 32-car field. So that's the story from the virtual Pocono Raceway, but it's time to get the perspective of the winning driver tonight, as we'll head to Victory Lane and talk with Eric Schaefer in the 22, who gets his first win of Season 4. Eric, green-white checkered scenario, you had stayed out, pit strategy was in the mix. What were the emotions in those final laps, and how were you able to hold on despite all of that to get your first win this year?
Honestly, man, I knew that staying out might be the objective, but I didn't know how good the daggone tires those guys were going to be. I just knew my only shot at getting a W was staying out and having my teammate Cody behind me to help push me down the straightaway on that last restart. Really worked in my advantage.
Of course, worked in your favor, and I think I categorize that as the turning point. Your restart where you surged ahead. Cody Kinsey was able to fight with Scott Healy for a little while before Healy eventually got by. I mean, walk us through the racing here at Pocono. I mean, this new next-gen car, so many different questions, and then you get a track like this that's so bizarre, so different from every other venue we visit or we're going to visit here in this 2022 campaign. What was it like to go toe-to-toe with the competition here at Pocono and to have restarts like that unfold the way they did?
Honestly, I absolutely do not like this car, but this track tonight and this car combination was on point, man. I really enjoyed driving this car here tonight, but this track was challenging, man. It was a lot of give and take, a lot of aero tightness behind the field and everything else, and the races we got coming up, man, is going to be really challenging for this car, especially the next race we got at the road course.
Challenging is an understatement. I know you're already thinking about Road America, the National Park of Speed, in 1 week time, but to have this win, I mean, the many moments I can recall, a couple of times where you were dominating races, where you basically had the win, you felt like you were the clear-cut favorite, and then something would happen, some bad luck would strike you. Tonight it doesn't. How does it feel to finally have the bad luck not happen and to stay out front and lead the way you did, commanding it to the finish?
Oh man, it feels good to finally get the monkey off my back, you know. I've been in some good spots lately and just haven't been able to pull the trigger and pull the outcome out that I needed. But this time it just felt good, you know. It just felt like it was my time to get something done. So I was sitting there riding behind Joe for a little bit, and I knew that I could get through the tunnel turn a little bit better than Joe. So if we were going to have a green flag run all the way to the end of the race, I was going to try to make my move there. But I don't know, man. I got lucky when all them guys pitted, and it just got handed to me, basically, I guess.
I wouldn't say it got handed to you. You definitely had to work at the end of that, and you definitely earned the win here. 11 laps led in this trip from Pocono. I know we had an overcast afternoon, but the sun shines on the Busch Chevrolet Camaro. Jacob Smith joked it in the chat, in the Discord, just a couple of moments ago, the Busch team supporting you on your win tonight. But Eric, before we let you go, before we let you continue your celebrations here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, anybody you want to thank for making this all possible?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast and everything, man. Y'all do a great job, and I really appreciate it. Shout out to Tyler and all the admins and 4Wide. It's a pretty cool place to come in and hang out with all the boys and do some racing and stuff. And shout out to all the Drinking Bros guys, and shout out to Paul Setup Shop for the help with everything he does for us on the open setup side that we run and everything. And yeah, man, just a good night, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in and watching.
Well, it's all love on our side, Eric. Of course, appreciate the kind words. And on behalf of our team, I want to congratulate you on your first win here in Season 4 of the 4Wide Racing Cup Series. Go celebrate it. You earned it. Maybe get some Busch Light on the way there. But wishing you the best of luck moving forward. And, of course, hoping to see you at Road America in 1 week time.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
That's Eric Schaefer to victory lane for the very first time this season. He holds off a stout field behind him in the final restart on a green-white checkered circumstance. We'll hop into second place, and that is Scott Healy, one of the former champions in this series, and he's caught up trackside with our very own Francisco Bacallao.
Well, Scott Healy, we saw it was a very interesting race up here from the booth. A lot of attrition, a lot of action, and it came down to green-white checkered action, and you just weren't able to get the job done. What more do you think you needed?
Uh, that turn two, man. If the 93 didn't go on the outside, I think I would have had a shot. But other than that, since that happened, I had no shot to it. So congrats to Schaefer for his first win, and if I had more opportunities, I probably would have taken it.
We saw for most of the race, especially in that first half, there was a considerable amount of yellows. And, that could definitely play into the psychology of a driver and how you go about the race when you're constantly running behind the pace car. How tough is it when you're behind the wheel? You know you have a fast car, but you have to sit behind the pace car for a good portion of the race.
It definitely sucks because you have to just wait it out, and find an opportunity. If you don't have anybody to help you on the inside on the back and front stretch, I mean, you're just gonna go right back to the pack. So you just gotta find your way around that situation. Draft racing is not my cup of tea. I kind of like spread out racing, but with these new cars and this draft package, you can't really do much.
And that's not going to be the case, of course, next week because we'll be at a road course for the first time this season. And what are your expectations? How do you think the race is going to go for yourself next week at Road America?
Uh, I have no idea. I haven't run a road race with these cars, so it'll be a experience for myself.
A lot of people will be new at that experience as well, Scott. But before we let you go, a lot of people help make this happen. A lot of sponsors involved as well. We'll give you the floor to give the shout outs to all those that help make this possible.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys. You guys do an amazing job. Friends, family, Murray Reedy Racing, and congratulations to Eric again. So that's all I have tonight.
We appreciate you taking the time with us, Scott. We hope to see you next week out there. Good luck, champ.
All right, have a good night, guys.
That's Scott Healy, who comes up just short, no doubt. A lot of speed tonight out of the Nike Chevrolet Camaro 64. Comes home in second tonight from Pocono. We'll hop into third and the final driver of our interview sector here in tonight's broadcast. We'll talk with the driver of the 14 for Stonks Motorsports, Adam Alashire, in his Ford Mustang. Adam, I understand that Michigan last week wasn't the greatest race, and tonight definitely looked a lot better. You had some moments where you were kind of in very interesting situations. You were in the mid-pack, a lot of the Hornets Nest racing, but you found a way on the final restart. How does it feel to grab this third place after what happened at Michigan just 1 week ago?
Michigan was, I wasn't really even mad after Michigan. I kept getting involved in stuff, and it just kind of sat with me in this race. My heart dropped a few times, and I finally managed to get to third, so.
No doubt, a very solid run to the end of this race, of course. So all of you guys had a shot to win it. It was just the draft, a lot of factors that came in. And walk us through the experience of racing this track at Pocono with the next-gen cars. I know Gen 6 was wildly different. 550 package is just a completely different race. How was it to handle this 670 horsepower car in the draft, in the pack, in this competitive spirit, especially in the final green-white checkered circumstances where you guys were pretty much all racing for the win?
It was different. Going into the corners, you had a downshift every corner pretty much to keep up with everyone. So that was new, and braking points were a little different. How to keep a handle on the car, a little loose on entry.
Unless able to overcome that, you end up in P3 tonight, a podium. Great points going into what's going to be a wild card next week. First road course race of the season, and the first appearance of Road America in the 4Wide Racing Cup Series. How are you feeling about that, and what are the expectations for the National Park of Speed?
I would love to race it, but I won't be here next week.
Oh, unfortunate. Well, it sucks to hear that, but hopefully we get to see you the week after, and maybe we get to see you get a road course debut. I think Coda will be the next one after that. A couple of races after Road America, so hopefully we'll see you there, and hopefully we'll see you the race after Road America. But nonetheless, on behalf of this run tonight, anybody you want to thank for making it all possible?
My teammates, they were yelling at me for not taking 2 tires on that last stop. My family and my girlfriend for watching.
You know what? I think you could talk to your teammates after the race. You're the highest finishing Sox Motorsports driver out of the field so far. So good news for you, Adam. But on behalf of our team, really congratulations on this third place finish from Pocono. It sucks that you won't be here next week, but of course, always looking forward to see you out of the racetrack here in this series, and hopefully we get to see you soon.
Thank you, sir.
That is Adam Alashire, the 14, who gets to P3 here tonight and rounds out our driver interview section of tonight's race. He's got a little bit to talk about. He's the highest finishing driver. I think a little bit of bragging rights at the end. But nonetheless, seriously, Francisco, what a finish, what a race. And I mean, a lot of cautions to plague this one. Surely, of course, we would love to see more green flag racing in this race. This race lasted a while. It extended by 1 lap due to green-white checkered scenario. But I think it was a great finish to the end. We had a lot of strong cars to finish, a lot of storylines to touch up. And now we get to wrap things up at a track that kind of handles like a road course to a track that really is a road course next week.
And I think the most notable thing to take away from this race is that for the second season running, we had a first-time winner. Last season, it was Jovi Ray. This time, Eric Schaefer able to get the monkey off his back, as he said, and get his first win. So a couple of first-time winners here at this racetrack, but also another different winner on the season. Still, the only repeat winner is Lawson Peel. So we have now, I believe that's 4 different winners in the 7 races, or actually 5 different winners, in the first 7 races of the season. And, you know, at this rate, either Peel's going to keep repeating wins, or we're going to have a couple other guys get some of their first wins of the seasons. Because if you think about it, we haven't had guys like Craig Lautenschlager, Scott Healy, Brian M. Smith. Guys like them have yet to have won a race, and you can't help but feel at some point in this season they're going to win. So if we keep getting first-time winners in this manner, we could very well end up close to, if not surpassing, double-digit win counts before the season's over. But I'm excited for Road America because I have not covered a league race there. I know exactly how road races are. I was in the booth for one last week. And, you know, they have their style, but I think with the racing these guys are able to provide, and with the large fields that we normally get, I think we'll still be in for a pretty decent race at Road America. I just can't wait to get out of the booth here and go make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Well, of course, you're looking forward to that. We're looking forward, though, to see you back in action on the YouTube chat 1 week from tonight. That is the Road America circuit we'll be seeing next week, our first road course race of the season. And here's a look at, again, our Season 4 schedule. We touched on it in the pre-race, but here's a look as to where we're going to go for the next handful of races. Of course, Road America next up on the block. First time we go left and right on a racetrack this season. And then we head to a returning track in Loudon, New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And by the way, good point from Francisco that every time we've been to Pocono, we've seen a first-time winner in the season. Road America could be a first-time winner when we go there. Loudon, the same deal. Nicholas Vizzuti was the winner last time we went to that very racetrack. Indianapolis will be next, then Circuit of the Americas, then our second Bristol, or our first Bristol race, our second night race of the season. Richmond was our first, Bristol will be our second. We'll continue on to the season before we start the playoffs at the Nashville Super Speedway. But on behalf of everyone here, that closes our coverage of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series from the virtual Pocono Raceway. It's been a wild ride, but Eric Schaefer surges ahead to win his very first race of the 2022 season. So on behalf of everybody that makes it happen, for Tyler Murray, everybody at the Race Council and the admin team for making these races happen each and every week, and on behalf of all of us at MaxSpeedTV, for my colleague in the booth tonight, Francisco Bacallao, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying so long, good night from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. We'll head to Road America, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin in 1 week time.